Pranakasha live stream.
Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions. Today we're talking with Gerald Braden, an amazing composer who I met on the internet many years ago, but I forgot how. Do you remember where we met?
I believe that if I remember correctly, I heard a piece of your music. It wasn't your cello concerto. It was for a clarinet, I believe.
Yeah, it was probably my clarinet concerto.
Beautiful piece.
But thank you.
I told my one of the conductors I worked with in Vienna about that piece. That's just absolutely. Your orchestration was wonderful.
Thank you. I'm trying to remember, were you ever on music forums or some place like that where a bunch of composers argued with each other?
It could be. I don't go on them very much anymore, because yeah, I did. I just started sharing my music. I'm 68. I just started sharing my music with the world about 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. Then I don't think. Then maybe we just met on that Facebook forum group.
It could be, yeah.
That's probably where we met.
But I don't. It's really funny. I don't even. And I'm not trying to say this in any nasty way because I'm no Beethoven or Mozart or anything. But I found out that that there were so many people that were constantly saying they listen to my stuff, and I've got my setup here with my old sampled sounds and everything.
Right.
And they'd say, "Oh, you've got to get Spitfire," or "Oh, you've got to get this," or "Oh, you got to get that."
Right.
And I was like, "Are you listening to my music though?"
Right.
That's all fine and dandy, but are you listening to my music?
Right. Can you hear through it? Can you hear through that?
I go to their Facebook page or their YouTube channel and I listen to their composing, and I'm like, no one's going to play that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, orchestra started playing my music. I didn't intend on any of this happening.
Yeah.
I'm an old guy, and all of a sudden, right now I'm doing I've got a well-known Italian conductor in Italy that wants me to make a transcription of my 15-minute long fantasy in F major for string quintet for string orchestra.
Nice.
So I'm gonna have to make a few changes because I've got cello, and I'm gonna have a bass now.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of a cello, 2 violas and 2 violins, it's going to be a regular 5-string. So I'm gonna have to make a few alterations in the transcription.
Right. Unless you want to just do what Mozart did, is just have the bass play everything that the cellos play.
Well, I want to, if possible, I want to use some of those lower notes, though.
Yeah.
Especially for a string orchestra, because that weight.
Right.
I'm always talking with conductors about that weight when they did my my sailing ships in. What was it? Was it the end of 2021? I think it was. I think it was December in 2021, and they did a concert of my sailing ships in what's the city in Serbia? Belgrade. Belgrade. Right. So anyway, everybody's always worried about musicians and the price and how all the costs of everything against ticket sales and all that kind of stuff. I understand that, but we're composers, know, and when I write a piece of music, I'm saying in my head, or I'm listening in my head, and I say, okay, this has to have an absolute minimum of 4 basses. You know what I mean? Anything less than that, and the tuba and the bass trombone is going to stick out like a sore thumb. You know what I mean? It's going to be too brassy because it's not going to have the strings to warm that tuba. And they said, well, we can only do 3 basses. Okay.
You want to know a secret?
What's that?
Every single orchestral piece that I've ever had performed, I think at most had 2 basses.
I know,
a lot of them have 1.
But you did some work in the studio at doubling those, and I used to do that.
So what I do, yes. So what I've learned how to do
when I had my digital recording studio in Florida, I had like a 40 track recording studio, and I'm a recording engineer too. But
Right.
one of the things that was wonderful about the digital recording was that I could copy and paste a section or duplicate a track, okay, from the beginning to the end, put it through a harmonizer, okay, detune it like a half of 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that unison sound, and now
Mm-hmm.
two basses sounds like four basses.
Right.
Okay.
I
And
know
I
that
and
trick.
I got used to doing that, with lead singers. If I did a vocal part, four-piece harmony part with a band or something, and then I would copy their vocal to another track and then pan them a little bit left and right and detune one just a little bit, sort of similar on how like Keith Emerson or Rick Wakeman would detune an oscillator on a mini moog a little bit to give it that thick sound.
Right. Okay, let's back up. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you and I assume that everybody knows.
I'm a
But
big
you know what I
nerd.
want to say?
I'm a
So,
big nerd, right? I'm a
yeah.
big nerd.
So, now, did you say that right now you're living in Austria?
Oh, no, I'm in Akron, Ohio.
Oh, okay. But you at some point lived in Austria.
Oh,
Is
that's a
that true?
long time ago.
Okay.
50 years ago. I was a teenager when I came here.
Okay. You were born there?
Yeah, well, I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. My dad was in the service,
Okay.
and he wanted me to be born an American citizen. So
Okay.
he came back for 2 weeks when my mother gave birth, and then we went back to Austria. So
Oh,
I
okay.
had kind of a dual citizenship.
So
But we,
you're an Austrian citizen also?
yeah, yeah. But because they lived there, but my father, in order to be an American citizen, you have to be born here.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Ja, ik spreek een klein, aber nicht so gut, wenn ik ben jong.
Ein kleiner. Well, my last name is Weiss, of course.
Sure, that means white.
Right. Yeah. And I come from, unfortunately, I don't speak, the only German I know is, du hast einen großen Kopf or du bist ein Scheißkopf. That's about all I know.
Scheitz?
Yeah.
Did you say scheist or scheitz?
Well, like Scheiße.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, my mom passed away in 2016, and there's nobody to speak German with. And I always thought I was going to marry a nice German girl or a nice Austrian girl, and have someone to speak with and everything. But it wasn't in the cards. I never got married. I ended up becoming old bachelor, and I'm sure not going to get married now. So that's why I have my dogs. My dogs are my best buddies.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah. So, well, okay. So, I mean, so you're kind of saying that like you didn't even have to try. Your music just caught on all by itself. But that's not really true because I know for a fact that
Oh,
you're
no,
really
no,
out
no.
there.
For 2 years when I first started, I paid for a Facebook ad in a different country
Okay.
and I um, advertised promoted. I
Uh-huh.
promoted one of my pieces
Uh-huh.
every week for like 6 days on Facebook. 1 week it would be in Switzerland, the next week it would be in
Right.
Germany, next week it would be in Spain, and that's how I built my YouTube channel. And
One Facebook ad
on my
for,
Facebook ads,
for
yeah. And
six
then,
days.
well, I did one every week.
Oh, okay. But I know I see you on Facebook really marketing yourself pretty
Oh yeah, yeah,
energetically now. But
yeah.
what I figured is because that I mean, you have a lot of experience in the music industry as an engineer and all that. So I figured, well, you know all about how to market yourself because you learned through that and you're just
Well,
applying the same
also I
techniques to
started
your own.
programming computers back in the 1980s, and I have a degree in sound engineering, so I'm pretty tech savvy.
Right. Okay.
And I own a sound and lighting company too. But
Right.
besides being that, former, professor of music theory and orchestration and stuff,
Oh,
which
okay. I didn't know
which
that.
I only did. Oh yeah, I only
I
did
forgot.
that for 2 years because I just I couldn't stand.
At what school?
I'm not even going to say because we left on not good terms. they loved me there, but they wanted me to. It's like when I was the choir, when I was the pianist and choir director of three large churches
Hmm.
in the past, and they pay me a couple $100 to a week to do a Wednesday night rehearsal and to do a Sunday morning. And
Right.
I built up a choir of about 22 people, and really did a lot of work for them and everything. And then
Hmm.
and then the next thing is like, oh, can you do this also? Well, no, not really, because I'm a music director at a resort with a 9-piece band, and that makes me 150 grand a year, and it pays my living. You
Well,
know.
what kind of band?
Well, when I worked for 10 years in Florida at a place called Shepherd's Resort.
Like big band music or what?
No, no, no. We had guitar, bass, keyboard, and drums, and then an alto and a soprano, female lead vocalist out front. And on the
Cover
weekend,
songs?
what's that?
Was it mostly cover songs?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We're playing out on a big stage over the Gulf of Mexico for like two,
Wow.
three, 4,000 people at a time.
For $100,000 a year? I mean, that was a pretty good gig.
Yeah, I was making about 150 a year.
Wow. I mean,
But
like most people that have bands with a regular gig, they're still, even now, they're doing it for like $100 a night.
oh yeah, but this was a big resort,
Okay.
and we became so well known in the Tampa Bay area that that we just packed the place with people every weekend, and we had a big concert system. We're out on a great big
Wow.
uh, uh, actual deck that went out over the right out into the Gulf of Mexico. Okay,
So how hard did you try to get this gig? Did it just fall out of the sky?
that gig I was playing with I was a guitarist. I'm just mainly a keyboardist now these days,
You and
but I
Eddie
used
Van Halen.
oh no, I played a lot of Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and Eric Johnson. I was a shredder, but
Okay.
and I started off with bass and cello when I was a kid. But anyway, there was a guy that was the manager of this resort, and he happened to see me in a bar playing with my Steely Dan tribute band, and I play in that band. I play. I'll go get mine.
I'll play a duet with you. It's really hard to sync on Zoom. It'll probably sound really messed up, but it'd be fun to try it.
Oh, I don't even. I haven't played in years. I pick up
Okay.
my violin every now and then because if I'm doing a double or triple stop, I want to make sure that what I'm writing can be played.
It can be done, yeah. I have a
Yeah.
violin too. I could go get my violin, or I got my guitar right there. It's an
So anyway,
Epiphone too.
I remember his name was Roger, and he
Okay.
was he was the manager of the entire resort,
Okay.
and he was an ex military guy, and from the Air Force, I believe, and he was like a captain in the Air Force, and he saw me playing with this Steely Dan tribute band, playing keyboards and guitar,
Uh-huh.
and then he comes up to me during the break, and he noticed that I was also showing the bass player some stuff, and he goes and he comes up, and I played saxophone,
Okay.
and he said, "How many instruments do you play?" And I said, kind of, that was like 7 instruments, and he says, "And you read music and everything?" I said, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and so he was looking for someone to be a music director to do all the arrangements and take control of the guys in the band and everything. And it's the first job I ever had where I actually went to the same place every day like a normal person
How
for
old were
10,
you at that time?
10 years. I left in October 2007. I was there for 2 years, so from 97 to 2007. So for the
10
first
years, okay.
Yeah, so for the first, I arrived in Florida in 1990. I was there 17 years, and I was playing rock. I had the long blonde hair, and my bolero hat, and my Stevie Ray Vaughan hat, and I was shredding guitar and everything. But
That's funny, craziest thing. I used to live in Clearwater.
that's where I lived, in Clearwater.
Yeah, I lived there for only 1 year. I was only like 8 years old, but it was 1974.
Well, back then, right about when I moved there, when you lived in Clearwater back then, you could go on the beach and
I did.
walk with a beer, and police didn't bother you. You could go and make a little bonfire on the beach, but that all changed within the first 2 years after I moved there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It started to get to be, but it was because people were abusing
Huh. Yeah, I
abusing.
remember we used to walk on the beach and there were these crabs that looked like giant army helmets.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Do they still have those?
oh yeah, yeah. They
Okay.
have they have the stone crabs, and what they do is they catch them fresh, but they only take one of their claws, and
Huh.
then they're not allowed to take both claws because their other claw grows back again.
Right.
Don't you wish we could do that?
Huh. And then what you do, you take the claw home and eat it? Is that what they did?
Yeah, they catch them in traps. They take the claw off. They put them back in the water, and and then they grow another claw again.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah,
It is.
when I was there, the song that was popular at the time was um, We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun, but the stars that we reached were just starfish on the beach and all that. You remember that song?
Yeah, schmaltz,
Yeah. Goodbye, Michelle, it's hard to die
chicken
when
fat.
all the birds are flying in the sky, and so on. You know?
I'm like I I'm super super all about melody. I mean,
Uh-huh.
my my main teachers for I'd say for melody, were Mozart,
Uh-huh.
Schubert,
Hmm.
and Brahms.
Yeah.
Okay, and Tchaikovsky.
Thing is, Brahms melodies, most of them are kind of weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I learned a little bit more about the darker elements of melody from Brahms and Dvorak and
Okay.
everything. And
Of course,
Tchaikovsky.
Dvorak has all those folk melodies and stuff.
Yeah, he
They're
was
like the thing that I think about Brahms. I mean, there's exceptions, of course, but most of his melodies are, there's a lot of sequences in them, and I remember there's some famous quote for him where he always said he could never actually even write a melody,
you
you
know,
know?
I neglected to mention one thing. I mentioned uh, this is important too. The Beatles
Okay.
were also a very, very big influence on me
Right.
because and Nat King Cole,
Mm-hmm.
Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
These people were all great big influences on me
Mm-hmm.
because they taught me how to write a melody.
Right.
And
Okay, here, I'm sorry. So how do you write a melody?
I hum,
Okay.
and then no matter where I am, I grab my trusty little cell phone here,
Uh-huh.
and let's see, let me find my little, where's my, here it is. Okay, let's see what I got here. Now the full orchestra.
Okay, perfect. So
No matter
let's
where
try.
I am, I pull over to the side of the road and
And
I hum in this, and then I write it out when I come home.
okay, so let's try something. So, and I've never done this on my channel before with anyone. Okay, I'm gonna start a melody and then you respond to it.
I don't sing very well these days.
Well, I have a cold, so I
You
can
can do
barely
that.
sing either. So let's see. Or I'll sing something, you respond, then I'll respond, and we'll just go back and forth and let's see if we can create a melody on the spot. So, bum pa pa,
Dun dun dun.
bum pa pa ta ta.
Dun, 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 dun.
There we go. So we got bum. I think what we did was bum bum bum
Yeah, we didn't record
bum bum bum. Bum. Okay, actually, were you recording it?
it. No.
Okay, turn on your recorder. It sounds like a pretty good melody, actually.
I'm working on a fanfare right now too. Where's my little Okay, where's my little record button? There it is. This will be recording 32.
Okay, is it rolling? Is it going?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Bum bum
Wait, are you
bum.
looking at an ad? Hold on a second.
Oops, can't have ads in our music.
There we go. Ready?
That'd be too commercial.
Here we go.
Is it going?
Yep.
Pom pom pom.
Bum bum bum.
Ba da dum bo.
Da 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 da. That's different than last time. I went to the fifth this
That's
time.
okay. Now we have half a melody. Bum ba bum ba ba.
Bum ba bum ba bum.
Bum ba bum ba ba.
Bum 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 bum.
There we go. Okay, let's hear what we did.
Play.
I thought it was pretty good, actually.
Wait for the fifth. Gotta get at least a few higher notes in there.
Yeah. So I mean, so right there. I mean, it used to be when I was a composer, I was like, I wish I could come up with a melody. It's so hard. But now, after all these years, for me, I've realized, whoa, it's not really that hard, actually. You just come up with any idea and then just roll with it.
I have on this one right here. Okay, let's see this one right here.
Starting French horns, strings answering. French horns again. Then strings.
This is the
Yeah.
next. And this. I actually wrote this out already.
Yeah. So you know what I finally realized? Like I think I figured out the secret to Mozart. And believe it or not, it's kind of the same secret to Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
You want to hear what my theory is?
Sure.
The reason why Mozart's music is so good is because he's such a great musician. So when he comes up with a musical idea and starts writing and composing, he's very, very sensitive musically, and he immediately reacts to what's going on. So it becomes this beautiful, organic kind of stream of consciousness thing that he does. And that's what makes it so beautiful is he doesn't lock himself in a box like most other composers do. He constantly reacts to himself.
The biggest gift that he had was when he was a little boy, and his father when he was like 3, 4 years old. His father used to write out bass lines for him,
Okay.
and tell him to make up melodies to the bass lines. And I bless the fact that I started off in the bass and cello, because what I learned about music is that it's the bass. Those low instruments are the foundation of the house, the foundation of the music.
Mm-hmm.
And when you listen to that foundation moving, you can. His father would say he'd write out a line and say, "Dum dum 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 dum," and he'd write that out, and he'd say, "Okay, Wolfie, you write out a melody to that." And dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And that's how he learned how to write melodies, is from
Yeah.
that foundation. You
Right.
can't build a house with no foundation.
Right.
You can you can write a melody and play on a solo instrument like a flute or an oboe or any type of brass instrument or something. You can only play one note at a time. Sure, you can write out a melody, but that foundation right there, it's like whenever I sat in with people all my life, what developed my ear was what developed my ears is that I used to just sit with the radio when I was young, and I would listen to a country station for an hour, classical station for an hour, a rock station for an hour, and I'd play my guitar, my bass, my cello, the piano, whatever instrument I was nearest to. I'd play it with whatever was playing on the radio, and it developed my ear. I started everything, where I listen to music, and I could put everything in a number as soon as I hear it.
Yeah.
1, 4, 2, 5, 6. I can put everything in. I can hear the numbers right there.
You're talking about the chords, right?
Yeah. The movement.
Right.
And that proved unbelievably fortuitous for me when I got older and I started sitting in with people. The people that weren't reading music and everything. Because say if I'm unless I'm playing bass.
Right.
Unless I'm playing bass, because if you play wrong notes on the bass, it shows up
it
like
screws everything up. Yeah.
That's right. But if I was playing guitar or keyboards, I'd listen to the melody of the singer singing and I'd listen to the bass guitar, and 98% of the time I could find the chord.
Right.
Just from those two notes, those two moving notes.
I love doing that too on violin. I have a standing gig where I go play my violin at an 8 a.m. mass at a Catholic church. And I just improvise.
8 a.m.
I improvise descants on all the hymns. I make up all kinds of stuff, and it's so fun. Occasionally you'll play a hymn that's just got really weird harmonies to it, and it's really hard to do. But most stuff follows pretty standard harmonic language, so you can just. And I do this exact same thing way you described. Like my mind has a pretty good idea of the chord structure from a theoretical point of view, just glancing over it. But then I use my ear and my musical instincts to just sort of navigate around it. And again, if I kind of get myself in a jam, I just noodle myself out of it. And 9 times out of 10, what I just did ends up sounding really cool. Even though I actually got myself in a bit of trouble.
I got to tell you a funny story. When I was... before I went to college, okay?
Yeah.
I went to this, I took a music class at this Willoughby School of Fine Arts. And this is after I came here. When I came to this country, what was I don't know, 14. But anyway, I immediately, when we came to this part of Ohio, I started studying with members of the Cleveland Orchestra. Okay. And, the principal bassist from the Cleveland Orchestra I was studying with. And then.
So, guys, if you don't know, the Cleveland Symphony is one of the world's best symphonies.
Oh, yeah. And these people, they didn't charge me or anything. They said,
wow, great.
Oh, yeah. They said no, because they knew that I was on the ball with music and everything.
Great.
But anyway, and I switched to electric bass, but that's a whole nother story.
Fretless.
But yeah, I had an Ampeg fretless bass, as a matter of fact, that I could play like this. That also had a pole to pull out in the bottom that I could play with a bow.
Oh, cool.
It was very cool. That was the same exact bass that what was the Jack something or other from Jefferson Airplane. The bass player had one of those
Huh.
back in the
Okay.
60s and 70s. But anyway, so I wasn't starting college yet and everything. I didn't start college really till I was about 20,
Okay.
and I was taking and I was mainly bass and cello, and
Mhm.
I started teaching myself piano when I was a teenager, but
Mhm.
I was playing by ear. I didn't have formal lessons.
Okay.
And, I could read the notes and everything, but you know as well as I do that reading piano music, reading two staffs when
Mhm.
you're used to reading a bass clef or or a tenor clef or something, or a treble clef, it's a little
Right.
difficult. But when I first started reading, those clefs looked like they were this far apart, and I'm looking until I started learning, to look from down up,
Right.
foundational, down to up.
Mhm.
And the same thing when you look at orchestra scores, when you
Yeah,
back
it's like
off. That's right. You back off, and all of a sudden you see a landscape happening.
right.
So
Um,
anyway, uh,
for
I was
example, it's a Beethoven symphony.
I can't see it very clearly, but
Anyway, there's a wall of sound that's going by like this,
there's a wall of
and
sound,
like
and there's a
two
lot of
seconds is one page of music. You
and
know.
there's a lot of question and answer. There's a conversation going on.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a good conductor, is when you can recognize those conversations.
Hmm.
And when I started studying and everything, and using the highlighter pen, and starts, this part's moving, now this part,
Right.
this
And
part's
for
answering.
example, guys, we just had a conversation when we created that melody together. There was this
Right.
back and forth question and answer thing
Question and
that we
answer.
did, and that's how we created that quite good melody, actually,
So
just off the cuff.
I'm in this piano class. We had these things called pianos called Baldwin electric pianos that had strings in them, but they were electric pianos. And
Okay.
I actually had one in a rock band. And instead of three strings per note, they only had two strings per note. But I used to carry my tuning hammer with me, and it was a 64 key keyboard, which
Oh,
basically was the same size as what Mozart used to use before
okay.
they had bigger piano fortes.
Okay, so you're talking about an electric piano, sort of the classic jazz, sort of pop electric sound, kind of like
It
Stevie
was a little
Wonder type of thing,
spinet piano that was covered in black Tolex, just like a Fender guitar amp.
but it had an amp in it. It had pickups in it, right?
It had pickups and had real strings in it
Okay.
that you had to
Yeah.
tune it every.
Okay.
So we're in this piano class. There's like, I don't know, 20 or 25 of us or something. And the professor is at the front of the class, and she has a like a little mixer.
Hmm.
Okay. And this is what, about, I don't know, 1970, or was that, I think 1970, maybe 71. But
Okay.
anyway, uh, we're playing, and she's listening to everybody playing. We're all playing the same part together. Okay. And she's listening in the headphones, and she could solo anyone by pressing their button.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So she kept hearing this like slight, like when you make a flam on a drum, you go "Ba-dup,
Uh-huh.
ba-dup, ba-dup."
Yeah.
And I wasn't reading. I was using my ear and listening to everybody else playing, and I was answering that quickly.
Okay.
Okay. And she
A quarter
caught,
second off of it, kind of.
yeah, a quarter second, you're about right. Yeah, something
Okay.
like that. So at the end of the class, she goes, Gerald, I want to talk to you. She says, you're not really reading the music. She says, are you? So, because she did it, she kept soloing people out to figure out why it wasn't all together. And she finally just found me and then everybody else, and she just sold two people, and she could hear that I was, just a quarter second behind, because my ear was working that quick. Playing the Alberta bass line, the Mozart stuff and everything, and that's what it was. It was easier for me to use my ear than it was for me to read the piano music. But what good is that going to do for composing, and if you have to play other music, and for studying music? So
Well,
when I finally went to
actually,
college,
yeah.
what's that? I ended up getting my first bachelor's degree as a guitarist.
Okay. Classical guitar?
Yep.
Okay.
And I didn't go back to school to get my master's degree until I was in my 40s, and that was for piano illustration and everything.
So by then you'd self-taught piano, or did you actually take piano lessons?
No, I taught myself to read a little bit better, but see, I never had the Hanen and the Schirmer and all the stuff that good pianists have. So, you know, for all the right fingerings for scales and things like that. And they were very forgiving to me when I got my master's degree, because, you know, when you're doing your when you are doing your, what do they call it? Your piece for your graduation piece, you know,
Your juries.
Yeah, you know, you have to be able to do like 3 octaves of scales in both hands and almost every key and everything. And I couldn't do them really, really fast because my fingering wasn't good. And they all knew that, but they knew that up here that I was good.
Now, interesting, because I got a bachelor's degree in violin performance, or violin performance, I think. But it was a Bachelor of Arts. Anyways, I had that exact requirement too. Every single music student had to be able, no matter what instrument they played, if you wanted a bachelor's degree, you had to be able to do exactly what you described. You had to be able to do that on piano. 3 octave scales. You had to be able to play a relatively difficult piano piece. And then, I think you had to do some sight reading too. So that's
I did. I played Revolutionary too. But I played pretty good back then, though. But I was in a bad accident. I was crippled for 2 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I was in a really bad vehicle accident back when I was about 48.
Okay.
And I couldn't move my hands for 2 years. So.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. And,
how did you heal from it?
Well, I went to all these different. I started drinking. You know, I was so bummed out. You know, and I worked my whole life to be fairly virtuosic. You know. And then all of a sudden, it's just gone.
It was all down the toilet.
Just gone. And all these lawyers and doctors they're sending me from one doctor to another, and they're poking big needles in me, and I don't know if you can see, I have a big scar on my palm of my hand. Right, this hand was cut all the way totally open. All the nerves to my fingers were cut.
And this was like a car accident, you said?
It was in a truck accident. I rolled in a van truck at 3 o'clock in the morning on the way home, a 14-inch box truck. Trying to avoid hitting 4 young women in a car that had jumped the lane coming around a corner in a rural area.
Shit.
I rolled off the road because if I would have hit them head on, I would have killed all 4 of them.
Right.
I was in the right lane. I was going to the left, and they were coming in the right. And instead of pulling to the right, they pulled into my lane and were coming head at me. So I pulled off the road, and the road had an easement that went down like this. And the truck, being with a heavy box, as soon as we went off the road, the truck rolled.
So it was sort of like a U-Haul type of truck?
Yeah, it was an Isuzu diesel truck.
Okay.
But anyway, it was horrible, man. It was absolutely horrible. And
did you pass out and like wake up in the hospital or something, or?
Well, I woke up when they brought body bags and everything. They thought I was going to be dead.
Wow.
And when they pulled me out, when the truck rolled, I was holding onto the steering wheel really tightly, trying to hold on to it, and then the rear axle broke. And as soon as the rear axle broke, a piece of the metal went down into the asphalt, just like a similar to like a one of those little racer cars that races on tracks that has like a little
slot car race. Yeah.
Slot car racing. Yeah.
Crazy thing is, when I was in Florida in 1974 in Clearwater, Florida, my favorite thing to do as a kid was play with those slot car races. I have very vivid memories of that.
That was a blast.
Yeah.
But anyway, it dug an 8-inch deep hole in the asphalt. Okay.
Eight
And as soon
inches?
as 8 inches deep in the black asphalt of the road.
Wow.
And as soon as the road's curved, and as soon as the broken axle fell free of the road, the truck lurched forward because it wasn't being held by the asphalt anymore, and it rolled.
Okay.
And when it rolled 1.5 times, and when it rolled over, my hands pulled off of the wheel, and my left hand went through the driver's glass.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the only thing that saved my left arm was the fact that the box right behind the driver's door stuck out about 3 foot. Okay. So when the truck fell on my side, which is what it eventually came to, it fell on my side. My arm was outside the window. If it would have been a regular van or a car, my arm would have been crushed and they would have had to amputate it.
Wow.
But anyway, so I went through all this stuff and feeling sorry for myself, and I kept playing guitar because
How if you couldn't move your hands?
well, I can move them a little bit, but I couldn't play piano because my thumbs wouldn't move at all.
Okay.
They were frozen in a position like this.
So even now, are your hands disabled now?
No,
Oh, okay.
I got about 65-70% back of what I used to have,
Okay.
but my hands go to sleep, and that's why I don't play live anymore.
Uh-huh.
I play keyboards in a rock band. We
Uh-huh.
play Deep Purple and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
You know, everybody comes up and says, "Oh my God, you play so good." I'm like, I used to play Revolutionary too, and I'm playing John Lord. I'm playing Highway Star. You know, big whoop. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But anyway, but I say thank you. You know, thank you.
Yeah.
And after about 1.5 years, they used all my insurance money up. Okay. And nothing was happening. I used to go out, I couldn't play any keyboards. So what I used to have to do is I would take a guitar pick and put it between my thumb and my finger here. Okay. And I had to duct tape it because I couldn't feel my hand. Because if I didn't duct tape it in my hand, I dropped the pick and I just hear it boom, boom, on the strings.
Uh-huh.
And then this hand right here, I couldn't bend the left thumb. So I used to take the guitar neck and just flop it in like that. And I went back to playing 4-fret guitar like Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page.
Okay.
Instead of 5-fret like this, you know, like Steve Howe, George Benson, you know, Alan Holdsworth, you know, all these, Joe Satriani. They 5-fret, you know, they stretch their fingers out. That's
Which is kind of sort of what cellists do. You spread your hands.
Exactly. Cellists, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You kind of, you know, like when you're playing bass, you kind of pad these middle fingers together a lot to get that strength, you know?
Yep.
Because it takes a lot of strength to play the bass.
Uh-huh.
Kind of, you know, I've met a few female bass players, and they kind of turned me on a little bit.
I know quite a few female bass players that are damn good.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, I actually interviewed one on this channel.
Don't arm wrestle with them.
Kelsey Mines. Yeah. Super creative person too.
So anyway, I got it like 1.5 years down the line, and someone said, "Have you ever tried doing acupuncture?"
Okay.
And I was like, "No." So I start looking in the phone book. You know, this is like before the internet.
Right.
You know?
Like, so guys, back in the day, there was this thing called a phone book.
Right.
That you would get in every once a year. They'd drop this giant book about this thick on your porch, and that's what everybody used to figure out people's phone numbers.
I get a little book still every year, but it's only about like this now, and I usually throw it in the trash.
Yeah, I suppose they still have phone books, but nobody uses them anymore.
So I looked up acupuncturists, and I found a doctor named Dr. Sarah Shu.
Okay.
Like SHIU, whatever the Chinese spelling was.
I'll buy it.
And I go to see her. She's only 2 miles away from me. And it turns out that she was a surgeon, okay, in China, and professor of surgery and everything. When she came to this country they made her go through 2 more years of medical school.
Right.
Like the body's different in China, right? You
Right.
know.
Yep.
So she was doing acupuncture. She was a doctor of acupuncture, and I am always totally open-minded about, because you have to remember acupuncture's been around 5,000 years.
Hmm.
I mean,
My
come on.
mom does acupuncture. I take her to the appointments.
So I when she starts doing the acupuncture on me, she's putting all these little needles all over, and then there's certain places that she attaches this like wire to with these electrodes. Okay,
I've done that.
my finger starts doing this, and she does that. My finger's doing this for a half hour. Then she does the other finger, then the other one, and she's doing all this stuff and everything. And then she has these things that look kind of like cigars. Okay, that was wrapped in paper, about the size of a cigar, about this long. She cut it with like a razor knife, utility knife, put a piece looked like a little cigar stub, and she put it gently on top of one of the needles, and she'd light it on fire, and she'd only do that outside. And I said, "Why do you have to do that outside?" And it turned out it was marijuana. And so she had to do it outside. She couldn't get that in, and she had to do it. And she had an outdoor place with like an 8-foot fence so that she could do this stuff outdoors so that the smell wouldn't be in her office.
So you could smell it and know what it was, right?
Yeah, I was very suspicious, but then I only had 10 treatments with her at $50 a treatment.
$500.
$500. Okay. I'm at a gig one night over in Tampa, Florida, and I didn't have any opposing thumbs, so I'm picking up this mic stand at the end of the night, it's about 2:30 in the morning, and I'm lifting it, like this flashlight. I can't go like this, and I could pick up suitcases, and all of a sudden my thumb goes click. There's a really loud click, and my thumb bends, and I go, "Oh my God!" And I move my thumb back, and everything goes click, click, click. A couple hours later, there's no more click. And about 15 minutes later, the other hand did the same thing. 15, 20 minutes later. I was crying,
Wow.
And I was like, what the F,
Yeah, did God just strike me with the lightning bolt and heal me?
Thousands of dollars with these American doctors, $500, $10, $50. And also, she would go all over my body, and she would take my pulse here. She'd take my pulse here. She'd take my pulse here.
This is exactly what they do with my mom at the acupuncture clinic. Exactly.
She diagnosed my diabetes.
And she probably looked at your tongue, too. Like, stick out your tongue. Listen to your tongue.
Okay. She diagnosed my diabetes 10 years before I had it.
Yeah.
She didn't diagnose the diabetes. She says there's a problem with your creatinine level.
Yeah, or like, your liver, the energy in your liver isn't quite right.
Yeah.
Here's an herb, You take it for 2 weeks and you're like, wow, I feel like a new person.
So I started practicing again, and total frustration again. I'm trying to play something. Of course, first thing I want to do is play the Revolutionary Etude, and never could play it ever again after that. Or like, Beethoven's, the
Pathetique Sonata.
Pathetique, the Moonlight Sonata, the third movement. I couldn't do any of it anymore.
Yeah.
I just, and
yeah.
And then I sit down now and I play some Chopin for someone or something, and it sounds okay, but you're a professional musician. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Like if I go someplace in the past, I used to people say, "Come on, Gary, sit down and play the piano," and I didn't mind, but I don't do that anymore now because to me it sounds like an elephant pounding on the keys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you can. I mean, of course, Beethoven went through.
But I'm up,
even worse, right?
But it's up here. It's okay.
Right.
It's up here, okay, and when I put it into the paper, it's okay. and
Yeah.
it's here in my ear. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to count your blessings
Mm-hmm.
because when this happened to me, as much as I hate to say this, what would have happened if I wouldn't have been in that accident? I might not have discovered that I was a good composer.
Mm-hmm.
I might have just continued playing. What does it matter if you're playing copy music in a band and you're playing Journey and stuff like that when you're 60 years old that you play when you're 30, or whether you're playing the same Beethoven and Mozart and everything at 60 that you did when you're 30? You're still
Mm-hmm.
playing someone else's music, you
Yeah.
know?
So when you were in these bands, did you ever write any original songs?
Oh God, yeah, I used to write a lot of good rock songs
Okay.
because I made a lot. I mean, through about 25% of the money that I made through the years, I sold songs to Eric Carmen and Patti Smythe and Pat
Oh, great.
Benatar, and yeah.
Great.
But see, I sold them
So I
outright.
don't suppose you wrote one way or another.
Uh,
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
no,
You
but
wrote
then
that? Oh my
no, but
God,
the thing
man.
was is that when I did write these songs for these people, that for these artists, um, what people don't realize is that people they think they see they romantic people normal people romanticize everything. They think that, oh my God, you're a composer, this, when you're selling those songs,
Yeah.
when you're just a schmo and you're nobody, you're I was selling these songs for $5 or $6 or $7,000. They're no longer mine. I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. This
Right. So you
agreement.
don't get residuals or anything.
No, I can't. I can't say I can't say. Well, what songs did you write? People say, what song? I can't tell you what song.
Oh, so you did write that song. You just can't say it.
I'm just saying. Yeah, I wrote a couple pretty big hit songs, but I can't. I can't say it because
Did you
you
write
know.
Hotel California? I really like that song.
But I wrote this song for Harry Connick Jr. about 25 years ago called "Merry Christmas." That um, I don't know. Did you ever hear it online yet?
To tell you the truth, I'm not a huge fan of him, but I bet you my wife's heard it because she really digs his music.
Look, okay.
Unless it's so popular that it's like, oh yeah, I know that song.
Let's see if I can find.
Unfortunately, we're being foiled by Zoom, where it's not coming through.
No, it's not coming through.
Yeah, too bad.
It's a Christmas is a special time of year. Let's see.
It's picking up the voice, but it's not picking up the piano very
Everywhere
well.
people filled with cheer.
Oh yeah, I know that song.
I wrote this really nice Christmas song for Harry Connick Jr.
I know that song. Yeah,
and
I've heard of that.
they paid me $6,000 for it, and I had a contract with them that says that he had to record it within a year, or the song went back to me, and
Okay,
they didn't record it. So I just I got $6,000 for nothing,
and you got it back.
and I got the song back, and I pulled it out of a pile a couple of years ago, and orchestrated it.
Okay,
I put it on YouTube
great.
with MIDI instruments.
Uh-huh.
But it's gonna be
Well,
beautiful.
you could then just run it through once you get Note Performer working. Get it to do that. You'll probably be really happy with it.
Yeah, and that's boy. There's some stuff that hopefully in the future. I mean, we don't want to waste time with tutorials and stuff like that while we're talking here. It's just we're having just a fun conversation. I don't want to
Yeah, I
bore
can help you with all that. It's really not. The hardest thing is setting it up and getting
I'm
everything
thinking
set
what's
up
going to
right.
happen. See, on my Kurzweil right here, I don't know if you can see this 88K Kurzweil keyboard, but I have an orchestron module on this with 22-year-old. They're sampled instruments. They're real samples.
Uh-huh.
And they were, state of the art at the time.
Yep.
But everything's set up in my finale for flutes at MIDI channel 1 down to basses at MIDI channel 16.
Okay, and it just runs it through your keyboard.
well, I set up all these program changes and everything. Okay.
Yeah, I
They
know. That's how I
they
used to
look to
do it a
my
long
mix
time ago.
output to go to my uh, CD burner.
And
So
then you record it real time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
what I'm assuming, there's a thing Finale has called Smart Synth, and I
hmm
looked at the new version of Finale that I just downloaded. It also has Smart Synth.
hmm
So I'm being a techie like I am,
hmm
uh, and a Trekkie. Being a techie and Trekkie,
Oh, you're a Trekkie. Oh, cool.
I'm assuming that they say never assume because you can make an ass out of you and an ass out of me. But I'm assuming that I'm going to be able to take my old 2006 Finale file, bring it over like as an XML file or something, and put it
hmm
into the new, and then I'm going to download the trial of the Note Performer. But there's all these program changes and everything I have. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to turn all those program changes off, and then choose the either the Smart Synth or the Note Performer and move it to the top.
Okay, so let me tell you this. So the score is sort of it's not like a score designed for a conductor. Is that what you're
Mhm.
saying?
Oh no, these are print and play. They're ready to go. The one that
So,
I use, the score that I use for my playback of my is the same score that the conductor gets.
okay, so the way Finale works is um it bypasses you don't have to run it through anything. What happens is, like, I guess you never used like Garriton Personal Orchestra or anything like that.
I have Garriton in this, but the problem is this is from 2006. That's
Uh-huh,
what 16 years ago.
uh-huh,
And when you switch over to Garriton, it's not just like switching a light switch when you're turning Eureka. There's light.
uh-huh,
You have to jump through a hoop like a bunch of circus poodles,
uh-huh.
and you have to tell it now. Okay, where you have this flute, now you have a flute in Garriton,
Uh-huh.
and you got. So I'm assuming it's going to be something similar to that, but much simpler than it was 16 years ago.
Okay, so but it's an orchestral score, right?
Right,
So for flute, you just have the staff that's the two flutes, right?
right. That's right.
Okay, so all you do, I mean, literally all you do is you go into Music Manager menu in Finale, and you say, okay, this staff is going to play the flutes in Note Performer. And then Note Performer will look at that staff. And this is why Note Performer is so good. What it
But
does is,
in MIDI, I'm going to have to go through every one of those 16 orchestra instruments.
well, you don't even have to worry about MIDI anymore.
Oh, really? Okay.
All you do, like,
And it's going to recognize A2 when two are playing the same part, or A1 if it's just one instrument playing and stuff like that.
um, I'm not sure about that, because what I do in my scores is when I want that, I just double the two layers.
I do that sometimes,
Yeah.
but if I do that for like if it's only a couple of measures,
hmm
I'll do stems up, stems down on layer one and
Yeah.
two.
So what you can
But
do though,
if they're playing for like 6 or 8 measures, and the one and two horn players are playing the same thing, I'll just put an A2 on there.
yeah, which is a standard thing to do. I think Note Performer can probably recognize that, but if it doesn't, the easiest thing to do would simply just to do what your thing is, just record that track twice, and then do your thing where if you want to offset it by a tiny bit of detune part of it,
Mm-hmm.
you could use that same technique.
And then as far as
Yeah.
I think the main issue I'm going to have is with my percussion mapping, because you told me to use a 5-staff percussion.
Mhm.
When I do my percussion, I normally have timpani and 2 to 5 note staffs.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, that's 4 percussionists plus a timpani player.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It could only be one, because in other words, what I'm saying, there could be each one of those.
Well, okay, just a sec. So I have a buddy who's a percussionist, and he's sort of coaching me on this stuff. Um, if you really expect it to be 4 players, now one percussionist can play several instruments. Like you
Oh,
can have the
that's what I
percussionist
do.
play
I have
bass,
to figure
drum,
out.
cymbals, and triangle as long as they're not all happening exactly the same time.
I
And you figure it
usually,
out so they can switch back and forth and stuff.
whoever's playing the cymbal is
Uh,
almost always going to do the triangle
uh.
or the tambourine, because I'm never going to have a cymbal and a tambourine at the same time.
So basically, the way to do it that I believe in and it makes the most sense to me is when you have a percussion staff, that represents a percussion player.
Oh, so now see, mine represent two players.
Okay, but then
Whatever stems up is the first player, no matter how many instruments he's playing, he or she, and then all the stems down in the second layer and finale are the second percussionist.
But what's the advantage of doing that? That just means more page turns for them.
No, because when I what do you call it?
Extract the parts.
Thank you. Extract the parts. Some of those English words I still. When I extract the parts, it extracts to two separate players.
Oh, okay.
So and
okay, you might be right. That might be acceptable, though. I don't think I've seen that on scores.
No, they love my percussion parts.
So do you see that? Like if you picked up a Tchaikovsky score or something like that, would you see percussion parts written like that?
No, back in those days they used that single line for the percussion, and you had a tambourine. And
okay, how about Prokofiev then? What would a Prokofiev percussion score look like?
Prokofiev, yeah, he did the same thing. All those guys, they used Mahler, Wagner, all those guys. They used those single lines. It was a single straight line. You've seen those before with the with the hash marks,
right? But I've also seen. I mean,
it's a lot of space, man.
It's also very common to have a multi-stave percussion score, and basically you just label it once and say, okay, this thing that looks like an F sharp is a triangle. This thing that looks like an A is going to be, the bass drum, or that's going to be the snare drum, and this thing that looks like a low G is a bass drum. Yeah, that type of stuff.
This is my finale map that I made up.
Okay.
So
right, I get that. I never thought of doing stems up, stems down.
Oh yeah.
But that's what I'm wondering. Maybe it is standard and I just don't know.
Snaps, I have percussion. It says PERC1, PERC2. Then on the second step it says PERC3, PERC4. Okay. Unless there's only three percussionists. If there's three percussionists, then one 5-line staff is just going to be one player.
Right. Depends. So you're just trying to save space on the score itself, the real estate, basically.
That's it.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons too. Why I always.
Because I'm sorry. I always do this, but so the thing is, of course, if you basically take two staves and crunch them into one, it makes it harder for the conductor to know what the hell's going on.
Oh no, they have no problem.
Okay, well maybe I'm just.
And I even put a box every time an instrument starts. I have a rectangular box that says triangle.
Cool. Yeah. Right. Okay.
And then if when the triangle, I always make sure that there's a minimum of one measure when they have to switch instruments. Sometimes they have to do a little bit more quickly. But
so you're in your mind, you're visualizing how they're actually going to do it.
Exactly.
Because you're a real musician, so you understand like there's certain logistical things that have to happen for this to work.
They always like have a little table with velvet on it, So the percussion instrument doesn't make noise when they set it down and pick it up,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like if I'm playing, if I'm writing violin parts, and I look at the double stops and triple stops, I'll pick up my violin and I'll finger the piece, the chord that I want, and I'll do an up bow or a down bow with my, and I'll say, yeah, this is playable, and and then it's okay. I figure I'm just a schmo, so I figure if I can play it, the professional player can play it.
Mm-hmm. And of course, after that, you can always show it to one of your friends who's really good at violin and ask them.
Sure.
If they're one good thing is even though if it's possible to play it, a lot of times if you're a really good player, you could say, well, you could do this, but it's really awkward. How about just do this, which is way easier, and actually sounds better, and it still gets you the same notes. How do you like that
The only
type of a thing?
instrument that I would say that I would not consider myself anything of an expert at is the harp. Because the harp, because of the 7 pedals that it uses,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very, very, very unusual instrument. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, when you become an expert at using those pedals,
Mm-hmm.
they're what is it that I learned years ago? I think you can't play like a B diminished chord on a harp. I'm not sure. I forgot what chord it is. But anyway,
Well, you can. I mean, you just have to set the pedals. But I mean, if you write stuff that's mostly diatonic, usually you just set the pedals to whatever key you're in,
so
and
far
off you go.
I haven't had a problem with anybody playing any of my harp parts.
Yeah.
But I just, I'm always horrified. Think one of the things that I'm always afraid of, and I'm pretty good at what I do, but I'm always you don't ever want to give an orchestra a score where they have to say, "What the f is this?"
Right.
As soon as you do that,
Unless you're Richard Strauss, but then you have to conduct it yourself.
But when the orchestras, when they like to play your music and you make the score user friendly for them,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, you look at a Franz Liszt piano piece, and he did things extremely theoretically. Okay,
It's extremely what?
he did some of his notation extremely theoretically. So that
What's that?
theoretically,
Oh,
like
theoretically. Okay. Yeah.
theoretically,
Okay. Yeah.
so that uh, like you sharp going up, you flat going down for accidentals, things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
Well, there's instances like where I might write a chord in a harp or a piano, or like I'm writing a scale or something, or a double or triple stop on a string instrument or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where if you're looking in this key, it might be okay. Supposing you're in the key of A minor, so you have
Mm-hmm.
no flats or sharps,
Right.
okay, which is C major, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking the simplest one. Okay, when you in the finale, it asks you, is this a minor or major key? Okay, I usually almost always pick minor, even if it's major. Why? Because I know that when I pick minor, it's going to play a G sharp for the E chord, okay? Because it's going to consider the E7 chord as the fifth, okay?
Okay.
5/7 chord. Whereas
Yep.
if I pick C, it's going to pick a G7 as the 5 chord. And being European as I am, and the type of European melodies that I like, the sadness, the melancholy, and everything,
Mm-hmm.
I will almost always, even for a major thing, if it's in the key of E flat, I'll pick C minor. It's gonna, because now I know it's going to be playing a B natural,
Mm-hmm.
G chord, to turn around to the C minor. Okay.
Which is quite Brahmsian.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Another sauerkraut eater.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's and same with Mozart and Schubert. I mean
Right.
Schumann. Okay.
Okay,
All the
before we
stuff.
go too far, I wanted to say that so most of the time the spellings of the notes are done according to music theory as like what key are you in. I'm going to spell it either like whether I want to call it an A sharp or a B flat.
Right.
However, the exception is when you're writing for harp. If you write A sharp, that means they're going to take the A string and sharp the pedal.
That's right.
If you write B flat, that means they're going to take the B string and flat the pedal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when you look at harp parts, sometimes there's really weird spellings of chords, and that's simply to make the pedal settings make sense.
Right.
So that's the one exception where it totally
and
matters.
I'd be willing to bet
Yeah.
you that in probably one of my pieces that has harp, that there were maybe a tiny little, I think harp players kind of get used to this,
Mhm.
and you have to rely on their expertise to
Hmm.
figure out whether they're going to do this as a C sharp or a D flat.
Right, and that's fine. You ask them, and then they tell you, and then you change it for them.
They've never said anything to me, so I just figured,
They might have just penciled it in, you
that's what
know?
I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll look across the score just like a race car driver that's walking the track. You know what I mean?
Right, they're used to it. And the
Sure.
thing is, a lot of musicians are too shy to actually point that stuff out to composers. I wish they wouldn't be that way. I wish they would tell me, because there's times when I simply don't have the expertise that they have. Like, for example, I wrote a piece for B flat clarinet. Luckily, my clarinetist is snarky enough. He said, "Can you please write it for clarinet in A, because that would be way easier." And I said, "Oh, sure, okay, no problem." But that's another case where you really want to rely on an expert.
Yeah. Look, what's very humbling is that when you think back before there's computers and airplanes and telephones and all this, these guys, man, they were doing all this stuff. They didn't have to think about it. I have a composition, a transposition thing on the wall right here.
Hmm.
I have little notes on the wall all around me if I'm not sure about something.
Hmm.
Where I mean, I know the ranges of all the instruments and everything,
Hmm.
but if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm tired,
Yeah.
you know, because I've caught myself. I remember one time I wrote an A2 for a bassoon. Okay, and the bassoon stops at B flat two. Okay,
Well, then an
so
A2 would be fine. Are you talking down?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry.
So, but it only goes down to B
The B
flat.
flat, low B flat, which is a very satisfying note to play. I don't know if you've ever played a low
But
B flat on a
I'm just
bassoon.
saying I screwed up.
Yeah.
So when you screw up, and you get this what you think is a perfect harmony and
Mhm.
everything, so I had to alter it, and
But Finale should have alerted you of that. The newer Finale would have said, that's too low. It would at least colored the note and said that can't be played.
since that point, I actually went into every one of my instruments.
Okay.
Okay, every one of them, and they're set for the actual instrument range,
Yeah.
and you can't go lower on an instrument, but like on a trumpet, a good trumpet player instead of a C6 can play a D6 or an E flat six. Okay.
Also, if you write something that high for trumpet, you can ask them to bring an A trumpet and just play that spot on A trumpet.
Oh, that's
You ever thought of that?
No, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But I use C trumpets.
Yeah, C trumpet. So do I. We vastly prefer C trumpets in our orchestra because it's just got a much better sound.
Mhm.
It's amazing how much difference one whole step makes.
I think it's just a rounder, warmer sound.
Yeah, it's got this really beautiful classical clear sound. It just to me it just sounds so much better than the B flat trumpet, which is so weird because it's just a step.
I have those same people that I mentioned to you when we first started talking. That
Yeah,
I call them the negative naysayers.
yeah, they pretty much are. I mean, you have those all over the internet.
The ones that they see, oh, there's an F5 on your French horn right there. That's pretty high for a French. Well, yeah, it's really the top of the written range.
Are you talking a sounding F or a written F?
No, a sounding F.
Okay, so that's a written C.
That's right. But
yeah, that's high, but it's playable.
Yes, but it's you're not supposed to score beyond that. But a good French horn player can play a G or an A. Okay.
Above that?
Oh yeah.
Wait, are you saying written what?
So
a written D?
There's middle C. There's the top note of a French horn. Okay, but a good French horn player can play this or this. But
that's super high.
You're rarely ever going to see.
I mean, it's going to scream if they even get the note.
The top note of a trombone, and nobody will ever write up there. But I've written parts for trombones are at E flat, right below that. And the reason that I've done that, and people go, and you know what? The orchestras played them. They didn't bitch about it at all.
Well, you had a good orchestra, a really good orchestra. These were these European orchestras that you paid, right?
Yeah, well, first couple of times, yeah.
Okay.
But They didn't say anything about it because the music was good.
Right. Well, of course, again, see
Well,
you.
if I'm playing a trumpet, like way up here or something, like up on these G and B flat way up here,
Uh-huh.
then I'm going to want my trombones. I don't want to get too. I don't want to get too thick as I get down. So I'm going to
Right.
be in sixths, or octaves or something.
I
But
assume you've read Rimsky-Korsakov's The Art of Orchestration, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I've got it all dog-eared and everything in my.
Okay. So again, you're such a good musician and you have so much experience playing all these different instruments that you understand the nuts and bolts of it's not just a computer playing it. You're realizing that there's a human being playing it and you got to figure this shit out.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Yeah, that's the art of orchestration.
Back in 2020 is when I had my first. Is when Bratislava played my first two pieces live.
Yeah.
And everything, all the studying that I did of orchestration and teaching orchestration and everything, I had not ever heard. I heard small orchestras playing my stuff for all the radio commercials and everything that I scored. Okay, I scored for members of the Cleveland Orchestra. They would come in and do the radio and television commercials with me and everything.
What year was this?
Oh, this is back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, so that's super great experience actually for you. There's so many composers that would not have those kind of resources available to them.
But
Yeah.
When those naysayers, they say you got an E flat up on your trombone, why don't you use an oboe for that or something?
An oboe, yeah, an oboe sounds a lot like a trombone, dude.
I'll use an oboe on top of a trumpet because it is a horn.
Yeah, well, oboe sound in a trumpet, when you double them, they almost sound like the same thing.
You can assimilate a high, really high, almost like a soprano trumpet or something. Okay.
Well, there's a lot of times when orchestrators will double the horns and the oboes, and you won't even notice unless you look at the score. And then you're like, oh yeah, now I can hear the oboe in there. And it's kind of like doubling the bassoons with the French horns.
Mm-hmm.
It just fattens the sound, and the sound's so similar that it just kind of gives more oomph to the brass sound, which is what you actually hear.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a trick,
But if I were to use another instrument for those notes right there, say I've got supposing I have a bass, the tuba only plays up the D right here.
Right.
A tuba playing right here, and I have this.
Of course, with those people who are saying that, the other thing they don't understand is the range that you're in a particular instrument. Like, for example, if I write a note on the A string of the cello, that's the exact same note on the G string of a violin, it will sound low and warm on a violin.
That's right.
But it will sound high and intense on a cello, even though it's the exact same note.
Exactly.
And you have to understand that. Yeah. But a lot of people who are beginning orchestrators,
that's what all these composers don't understand.
Yeah.
Is that if I'm playing like a bass, if I'm playing a C on the E string up on the bass here, I'm bowing, okay, it's going to sound, a lot muddier, okay, than if I go down and play that same C on the A string, 3 frets up. Then all of a sudden it's gonna get some beautiful tone to it.
Right.
So if you're doing a passage where you have to, on the cello or the bass, or violin or viola, where it's not really holding the note, but it's moving very quickly, then it's okay as a passing tone. But not if you want to hold it because it's going to sound muddy. And
it's the sound engineer talking right now.
And what you just mentioned right there. About saying that between the violin and the cello that it's the same note. We can go back to that question and answer right there. It's the exact same pitch, but you can actually do an interesting question and answer that with the passing that same exact pitch note on each instrument, and it's going to be totally different on each one.
Right.
So you've just doubled the color of what you're capable of doing in that one little thing, realizing that one little thing right there.
Yeah. Well, it's also amazing. A lot of times when you're orchestrating or even composing something, and there's a spot that clunks, and you're like, "Dang it, why isn't this not working?" A lot of times you can fix it simply by changing it an octave higher or lower.
Yep.
It's so amazing how just changing the register will fix something.
I'll usually, if I have something that that is not coming out exactly the way I want it to, one of the first things that I'll usually do, say maybe I want a French horn to sing a little bit more. I'll add a flute an octave above it.
Yeah.
If I add an oboe or a clarinet, it'll stick out too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll add a flute maybe playing the same part an octave higher, and it'll actually bring out that French horn a little bit more too.
Yeah.
But you don't know, you don't really notice it, but you'll notice if I don't do it.
Right. You'll notice the effect, but you don't really, you won't, unless you're really listening close, you won't know exactly how he did it.
This one conductor, Anthony Armori, that's in Vienna, he's conducted like 4 of my pieces, and he said I noticed that because you're studying Rimsky-Korsakov, and you're studying Strauss and Berlioz, the books on orchestration and everything.
Yeah.
And they say,
no, I'm sorry to say, but my opinion is Berlioz is most of the time full of shit.
Well, he wrote some pretty amazing music for only being a flute player.
Okay, well, I'll give him that.
But
I played so much of his stuff, and I'm like, you know what, this is so hokey. I just don't really put him in the same ballpark as all these other great composers.
No, I don't either. But he was talented.
Yeah. Okay, we'll give him that.
You got to give him his talent. He wrote some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just saying he's not one of my favorites or anything.
Okay.
But Anthony was looking at my scores, and he goes, because we have it beat into us by the old masters. 1 string section equals 1 wind or one brass instrument. Okay.
I never heard that.
Oh yeah. That's the weight of what's going on. If you have a string part that's playing a melody line, and you want that string part to stick out as the melody, okay, and they're both playing in mezzo forte, okay, and they're playing kind of like harmonies together, the first and second violin sections. You're going to double whichever part is playing the melody. You're going to double that with a flute, an oboe, or a clarinet, or a French horn, or a trumpet, or some other instrument. Just one though, not 2, just one. And when you do, and when I do it, I almost always do it 1 dynamic marking lower.
Okay, yeah. Depending on what you so in other words, so this is the idea.
I don't want it to stand. I don't want it to be mezzo forte, just like the string is. I'm going to put it at mezzo piano. Okay. So.
But I mean, no. Okay, I'm going to argue this. Like, for example, if you score something where you got the horns doubling the violas.
Okay.
The person in the audience is going to hear the horn as the.
Well, with horns, you always have to go one dynamic marking lower.
Well, okay, let's try it again. So, I mean, if you did the first violins and the oboes, you're going to hear the oboe. If you do the first violin and the flutes at the same pitch, you're going to hear the violins, unless it starts going up really high, then you're going to hear the flute.
That's why I always put them I use the same theory as the brass instruments. When they say equals, one string section at mezzo forte, 1 full, like the first or second violin section, or the viola section, or the cello section, is going to equal 1 wood or 1 brass. But
okay, I mean, so this is sort of a basic guideline.
Oh yeah, it's just a basic.
You
guideline.
Have to, in every case, it's a double in the details.
You break the rules. Then you break the rules.
Well, you just have to either you go to the rehearsal and listen, or you in your mind's eye, you're like, okay, if I write this for the cellos at this register and I double it with the trombones, well, unless the trombones are double piano, we're going to hear trombones.
That's right. No,
You
you
know,
have you have to have it one. And if you have more than one playing, if you have two playing, it's going to be super loud. But
yeah.
if you're just trying to double that melody line, so suppose you have a bassoon or a French horn playing the same line with the cello. Okay.
Then you'll hear the cellos probably.
But
Well, it depends on the music. Like for
I'm still gonna make it one dynamic marking lower.
well, it
Bassoon
also
or
depends. Like if you're listening to Bach and the bassoons are doubling the cellos, you're gonna hear the cellos with a little bit of warm sound backing them up,
Mhm.
because that's how it's played in that style of music, right?
I
Because
mean,
a lot of times, for example, I mean, in a
I
Baroque
would say
music,
I don't know about that style. I mean, the Baroque style. I would say that's because that's what he heard in his head, and he ended up
also, I
recreating
mean, the bassoons in a situation like that are sort of ad libitum, like they sort of, you can take them or leave them depending if you have bassoons or not.
Yeah, I'm just always
Yeah,
careful because it's a
yeah,
double reed. It's a double reed instrument, the oboes and bassoons, and I'm always afraid. When you play a sampled sound, it's a lot different than uh, a live musician playing it because you play a sampled sound and it's never going to be as sweet as a real oboe
right,
player playing it.
right. Though note performer is getting pretty good.
Are you really?
Yeah, because what note performer does is it uses artificial intelligence to interpret the melodic line it sees, and then it attempts to play that instrument as if it were a real person. And it's some of it does damn good. It's amazing how good it sounds. I mean, if you listen really close, you can still tell it's fake,
Sure.
but you have to really have a sharp ear.
Well, I'm looking forward.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I just didn't want to waste a lot of time. I started looking into Note Performer 3 years ago.
Mhm.
I finally got my new laptops. I finally got my entire house wired for Ethernet cable. I finally got my NAS drive here. I can access from 6 rooms, six
Yeah.
computers in my house.
All I
I
can
can.
say is, I mean, it was way easier for me to set up Note Performer than it was to set up Brereton Personal Orchestra.
That was a pain in the ass. I was
Yeah,
so frustrated. It was so unuser friendly. So
yeah,
I messed with it for like a couple of days and I never went back to it.
yeah. I mean, again, usually the largest hump is just the initial setup, because there's some weird tweak you got to do in some VST setting or some hardware thing, you know, super geeky thing that if you don't do that, you don't hear any kind of sound at all. And sometimes it can take you days to figure out what that was. But then once you finally get it, you never have to worry about it for the rest of your life.
I'm trying to. I'm reading. Before I even attempt to do anything, because I just
Yeah,
loaded it in last Friday, the new finale,
good.
and I'm actually watching some YouTube videos and everything first because
Yeah,
I remember what it was like when I was in college, and it's like at war, where they're stuffing the cannons,
hmm,
and to get ready to fire the cannon. They were stuffing my brain full of stuff when I was in college.
right.
And I was touring at the same time, and
Yeah,
sometimes I'd miss a week school, come back and have to make up a lot of stuff,
yeah,
and uh, and then every summer would come along when you'd be off, and for the first month of in my summer, I'd be on a picnic somewhere, sitting at the side of a lake or something, about a month after school let out, and I'm sitting there and I go, oh, it took like 4 weeks of all that stuffed information in my brain before it matrixed through my brain and all fell in
right,
the right place.
right. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
I compose that way. I'm sure you do too.
sure.
A lot of times I'll compose half a piece and then put it on the shelf for several years. And then I'll wake up one day and I'm like, oh, maybe I should finish that. And
Yeah, I
then
do.
when I go back to it, it just comes out super fast, because my theory is that my subconscious mind has been grinding away, working it all out for all that
Damn
time.
right, man. I can't. So I go to bed,
Yeah.
and when I lay in bed on my back,
Hmm.
and I'm laying there in the dark, and I actually see notes dancing on the ceiling.
Yeah.
I see staff line and notes dancing in the ceiling, and then I close my eyes and I see the staffs and notes
Yeah.
behind my eyelids as I'm going to sleep. And then when I go to sleep, I have dreams
Yeah.
where sometimes I have to wake up and write something out that I actually heard in my dream, and then I might not finish it. And like you said, I might come back to it a month later because I'm working on something else. But I always try to make sure, no matter what, that I don't change horses in the middle of the stream. When I have an idea, I try to get the whole idea out because I had a writing professor in college,
Mhm.
for what's that class? Literary writing I'm talking about. And he said, I was,
Expository writing.
yeah, I wasn't planning on being an author or anything like that.
Mm.
It was just one of the electives that I took. And what I learned from this professor was that don't worry about fixing the little things.
Mhm.
When you feel the muse and you feel creative,
Mhm.
keep working, keep forging ahead.
Yep.
Get the whole idea out on paper, and that's the same
Capture it somehow, or on
That's
your tape recorder or whatever.
That's right. Hum
Yeah.
it, write it out, capture the whole idea, just like this on my phone right here. I've got there are 10 little recordings that make up the opening themes of this new piece that I'm writing.
Yeah.
And as soon as I hear them, I can go to the piano and play it. I know this is going to be French horns, this is going to be violins, this is going to be the basses and cellos answer. But so once you get that idea, and then I can come back and write it out, I can set it in a pile, and it becomes like a patch of a quilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made full orchestra pieces out of these patches of these quilts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You kind of sew them together. You get the little transitions from
Right.
this section to the other. And it's
Now,
all,
hopefully, they somehow relate to each other.
well, you have to use ones that do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's the whole idea. Is our very first thing was talking about melodies,
Mm-hmm.
or you can call them themes.
Mm-hmm.
So I come up with these themes, and then I tie them together in a quilt,
Mm-hmm.
like the symphonic dances. When I do, let's see. So I have like an intro.
Right. Unfortunately, Zoom is dogging us where it picks up your voice, but it's not picking up the piano very well at all.
Yeah, it's a whole orchestra, but it
Yeah.
probably sounds all muddy.
But what we can do, we'll put links to a lot of your pieces down here
I
in the
can't wait to try
description.
this. I'm gonna try this in Note Performer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's like, okay, I said this before in other shows, but like sometimes people say like, oh my God, I can't believe how that artist or that musician could do that. I mean, the guy's a total genius. How could he do that? You know what my answer is?
What?
The reason he can do it is by virtue that he's a human being that has a human brain. A human brain is the most amazing supercomputer ever. And the thing is a genius, the difference between a genius and a quote normal person is the genius figured out how to access this computer
That's right. Did
more skillfully than your average person.
you ever see the movie Lucy?
I don't think so.
The movie where the Scarlett Johansson.
I don't think I did.
Oh, you got to watch that. Take your wife.
But my thing is,
watch
if you learn how to develop a relationship with your subconscious, you learn how to react to it and talk to it and ask it to do things and be nice to it. It will do things if you ask it nicely and listen well. And then now you have access to this amazing creative supercomputer that literally, when you go to sleep at night, this supercomputer creates entire universes in an instant and then you live in them in the form of your dreams. And that creative power can be trained to make symphonies.
Remember what Einstein said?
Yeah.
His genius is what did he say? Is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.
Yeah. Then, of course, once you learn how to conjure up the muses, let's say, then you spend your life trying to develop that skill. And of course, there's a lot of hard work involved. But if you hook into really authentic, creative stuff, it's exciting, it's thrilling,
I used to
right?
have a saying that was on my wall that I can't find it since I came here from 2007 in Florida. It was something to the effect, and I used to have it right where I was working by my piano all the time. And it said, "The world is full of educated derelicts." And and basically what it was alluding to was, people that whine and moan that, like when I watch movies and people say, "Oh, I'm so blocked, I can't, think of anything." Or, dude, let me tell you something. I don't even know you that way, but I tell you this about you that I know, and I know I'm right. When you have other things in your life, to bring you joy and everything.
Hmm.
Me, it's my dogs, it's nature, it's taking a walk in the park, going fishing, whatever, And you know what? When I don't feel any inspiration, I go do other things.
Hmm.
I don't worry about it. It's just like, I don't mean to be graphic. The guys that worry about whether they're going to be able to perform in bed. I don't ever
Hmm.
worry about stuff like that, man.
Hmm.
know, it's all good.
Yep.
When I'm just a human being, I'm not a god. I
Hmm.
realize that, and there's 8 billion people in this world, and I know what I'm good at, what I wish I was better at.
Hmm.
I know what I am and what I'm not,
Hmm.
and I don't spend my entire life trying to hone, reach for some thing that I don't feel that I'm ever going to reach.
Okay.
When I know that this is within my grasp, and I'm good at this.
Hmm.
Okay.
Though uh, you do play a pretty big game if you're writing symphonies.
Yeah. Well, and I
Especially if
don't.
you're getting great orchestras to play them, you're playing a pretty big game.
I'm supposed to be having my first U.S. performance next summer, so I'm waiting to see if that's going to happen.
Cool.
That would be
Yeah.
nice.
Well, okay, I'm gonna counter. On the one hand, we're just human beings, we're not gods, right? We're just normal human beings. On the other hand, human beings are made in the image of God, and we
That's
have
right.
this miraculously powerful supercomputer known as the human brain. We're also aware, we are conscious, and we have this connection to all the entire universe through our awareness. So, at one hand, we're just a little speck in the cosmos, but on the other hand, we're totally connected to this cosmos. So, you'll make a lot of people pissed off when you say it, but you also can say, well, we're not gods, but on the other hand, we kind of are.
Yes.
You
In
know,
in in a
it
way
depends
we're
if
in
you
a
hook
way we're
into the part of
without
you that
without
is.
without being religious. I'm very spiritual. Without being
Hmm.
religious, we are an extension of God.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I
Well,
say God, I mean, uh, uh, it's like I consider myself a Christian, but I also believe in
so do
Buddha.
I.
I believe in Muhammad.
Hmm.
I believe that they were probably all prophets of God. We didn't have planes and trains and everything.
Hmm.
So who's to say in this big, huge blue ball, Earth, that God didn't have a prophet in Africa and a prophet in China and a prophet in the Middle East,
And don't forget the Eskimos.
and the Eskimos, the Great Spirit,
Hmm.
the American Indians and everything. So yes, I think that we're all an extension of that. And uh, when you mentioned a minute ago about I forgot the word that you said, but uh, about how we feel things, how
Hmm.
we experience things. I I experience,
Awareness.
I experience through smell, touch, the feel of cold and warm on my skin, by my hearing, my
Hmm.
sixth sense.
Hmm.
Okay. All these things are part of my creativity.
Hmm.
You know, I can be in the woods and be in a piss poor mood and hear a bird sing a certain melody or something, and all of a sudden I'm crying.
That's great. Yeah.
You know, to me, getting to me, that's when you're becoming one with
Mhm.
what you were meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, try going into the forest, and I did this with my summer prelude, and try taking some manuscript paper and writing out the melody of a bird.
That's a great idea.
I did it. I mean, you know, it's or like when I did my frogs, you know,
Yeah.
I used like seconds in the bassoons.
Yeah.
Bump, bump, you know, like so it's like, oh wait, you know,
Yep. I can.
but
Yeah.
you know, lower stuff like that. The sound like, and it sounded like frogs, you know, with the bassoons.
Like Beethoven when he did the horns. Ba, da, da,
Yeah,
ba,
yeah,
da,
yeah, exactly.
ba, ta, 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 ta. Yeah. You know.
And then from my woodpeckers, I used wood blocks,
Yeah.
high and low wood blocks, in that were answering another bird in my summer prelude
Yeah.
in sixes.
Yeah.
I can't do it fast enough on my tongue.
Yeah. It's fine.
And the conductor had to tell the percussionist how to play it because he wasn't getting it right. So
Did you write in the score woodpecker?
yeah, it says woodpecker. Yes,
Good. Yeah.
yeah. There's woodpeckers, and then frogs, geese, birds. You know, and they're all having a conversation. They're all talking to one another.
Yeah.
And I never told a soul about it. And there was a one of my composer friends that lives out on the East Coast,
Yeah.
and he didn't see the score; he just heard it on YouTube. And he said he left a comment. He goes, and the comment's still on YouTube too, from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And he says, I could hear all those animals, all those creatures that you did in the forest there, and I never told anybody that I put creatures in it or anything like that. And he heard that, and as soon as he heard that, I got a big grin on my face. I said,
Yeah.
"Yes,
Somebody got it.
somebody got it."
Yeah. It just
So
takes one or two good listeners, and you're like, "Yay, mission accomplished."
that's it. I'm
Yeah.
I actually, you know, I didn't recreate nature, but I created something that was good enough to remind someone
You celebrated it.
of the existence of nature. You
Yeah.
know,
You invoked it.
that's right. I evoked it,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's
that, excuse me. Yeah. Another thing, like I talk about, um,
Sibelius was good at that though too.
yeah. Another word that I really like to use these days, like I like to talk about when we start getting spiritual and religious, the words I like to use, like, like if somebody asks me what my definition of God is, you know what I like to say, this is the Matt Weiss definition of God, is God is awareness, silence, and love.
I'll go along with that.
And then also I say, also, when you're in that space, the sense of amazement, or like when you're in that space of awareness, silence, and love, you can look around at anything and be amazed by it. Like you say, you walk in the forest and you hear a bird chirping, and you're like, that is just so amazing.
I used to go. I haven't done this in quite some time, maybe about 3 years
Yeah.
since I did my no about yeah since I did my overture for America that I'm retooling
Uh-huh.
to New World Overture. I'm retooling it to New World Overture because they won't play Overture for America and Europe because they don't care about America. I'm retooling the orchestration and calling it the New World Overture instead. Just like they won't do my American Spiritual about slavery because they don't care about it over there. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to work and getting it done here. But anyway, I used to when I would take manuscript paper, and I still do that, out into the orchestra, into the forest and everything, and a thermos of coffee, and especially like on a fall day or a nice summer day where it's a little bit breezy and everything.
Hmm.
And I hear a symphony. This tree's moving, and I hear this rustling, and this is happening, and I hear the squirrel making a noise over here. I hear a bird up here, and to me, all these different things that are happening are just like looking at a music score, but I'm hearing them. And I pray. I always pray. I got caught once. Okay, I got caught once, and because someone will think you're crazy, and they did think I was crazy, where I was conducting the forest out there. I was all alone. Okay, you trees,
Yeah.
you okay? Come on, and I like really get into it, because I'm hearing just all these sounds, but they're all around me. They're not just in front of me like an orchestra is. They're all around me.
Now, don't forget the ants that are crawling around in the grass.
That's right.
There's a whole lot going on down there too. That's just complete mind blowing.
That's right. Those ants. Those ants. When you see a string of ants, they can kind of be that light little snare drum.
Yeah.
It can be a kind of little snare beat that's just kind of keeping everything going.
Yeah. Like the buzzing, the honeybees and the bumblebees, they get lots of attention, but the ants get kind of a bad rap usually. So we gotta.
When we started getting
celebrate them too.
At the turn of the last century, when Einstein was coming up with the theory of relativity, and all these physicists and everything were coming up with these great achievements, and Marie Curie was, it discovered radium, and and everything started to be noticed at a molecular level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an entire universe that always existed was now they were becoming aware of it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things about spirituality that's always going to play over top of religion to me, because one of the first things that I always see with people, I don't care if it's Muslims or Christians, Buddhists are pretty cool all the way around. Okay, they're pretty cool people. Hindus, they have all their different gods and everything too, but
but remember, Hinduism has yoga, which is very, very similar to Buddhism. When you start digging into it,
there's very, very similar things. But
yeah,
watch out for that god Kali though, because
But don't forget about Krishna.
Krishna's cool, but Kali is scary.
Yeah, Kali, you want to stay away from. Kali. Yeah, Kali. Don't get her pissed at you. But I mean, hang with Krishna. He'll play his flute and tell you all kinds of great stories. And
think about when I came to this country.
Yeah.
I was Catholic. Okay.
Okay.
Good Catholic Austrian boy. And I'm in a Catholic church, and we're doing. Vespers are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you're walking around the church, and you're seeing the depictions. You're kneeling and crossing yourself and praying and everything. And I'm in this cathedral, and there's like all these depictions of Jesus, and he's got blue eyes and sandy brown hair. He looked like Brad Pitt in Legends of the Fall.
Yeah.
Okay. You ever see Legends of the Fall?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he looked like a movie star.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a crooked nose, blue eyes. There's all these like blonde, curly-haired children, with white robes on, playing with white lambs and everything. Yeah. I'm sure that none of those things existed in the Middle East by the Tigris and Euphrates. And
well, I think they had sheep and goats and stuff.
Yeah,
and they probably wore garments that I mean were sort of robe-like, but I mean it didn't look like something angelic.
Probably more, and we're not white. They were probably like burlap sack.
Burlap, yeah, kind of off brown, probably.
But anyway,
unless you were rich, then it was purple. But if you're a commoner, it certainly wasn't.
And we had black people in Austria, but we didn't have that racism they had. I didn't understand racism when I came to this country. It took me 2 years.
Yeah, it's weird. You know what? I mean, here in America, we're so hung up on blacks against whites and stuff. But like, I've gotten to know a fair number of people in Africa now, and like in Liberia and Gambia and those places.
Mhm.
Well, there's people, there's discrimination there, and there's people oppressing people.
Sure.
But and guess what color the people are that are getting oppressed? They're black, right?
Sure.
Guess what color the people are who are oppressing them?
There are black people too.
They're black.
Yeah.
It's the rich black people oppressing the poor black people. So over there's no racism. But people are doing the exact same shit, but it's based on another arbitrary thing, which is actually what I say is the real thing that divides everyone, is who's got the money and who doesn't.
But see, over in Europe,
Oh.
the difference is we had serfdom in Europe.
And feudalism and all that type of stuff.
Because we had monarchies, okay?
Mm-hmm.
For, a couple thousand years, but
Right.
we never really had slavery per se, like the Romans had and everything, you know what I mean? And so there weren't, tons and tons of black people in Austria when I grew up.
Yeah.
But nobody said, "Oh, that black son of a bitch," or and if you were black and your name was Franz, you spoke perfect German just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you're listening to a movie, one of the most humorous things when I learned how to speak English more is when I came to this country and I'd see black actors. Hello, bloke, how are you? And then I put two and two together and I said, wow, it's the same in England as it was in Austria. They speak perfect English. So, because I went to a school here, okay, and I wasn't speaking English very well yet.
Right.
And someone would walk up to me and say, hello, Gerald, how are you today? I said, I am very good. I talk like this when I first come here, He said, I'm very good, thank you very much. And then a black guy would walk by me and go, yo, G, what up?
Right.
Back in the late 60s, I'm going, what the hell did he just say to me?
Yeah.
Yo, G, what up?
Yeah.
That Ebonics thing, that is the same in Boston as it is in Dallas, as it is in San Francisco.
So
but it's because they had slavery. It took me 2 years in this country to realize it.
It's all cultural. Like when I say it's all racial, I'm like, no, it's not. It's cultural. Because like if you take a black person in America and they have a certain culture, right?
It's Latino people. It's the Asians that worked on the railroads. It's the American. It's Native Americans. Everybody that wasn't white and Christian got shat upon in this country.
Yeah, basically oppressed by the people in power. It's just the people. It's not about the color of your skin. It's about whoever's in power dehumanizing some other group of people based on some arbitrary quality they have. With their skin color, how they talk. That's what it really is.
Now we're bringing religion into this.
Yeah, okay. Or they're, I'm a Catholic. We're in charge. You're a Lutheran. You guys, we're going to burn you at the stake because you're not Catholic. Type of stuff.
But if you bring the religion into it now, what was going on? If you weren't white and Christian in this country, okay, well, Christian. Well, what does that mean, Christian?
Want to know what I think it means?
You're saying that you're telling me you're a Christian and that this Native American or this Asian person that's working on your railroad, that maybe is a Buddhist or a Shinto or whatever, and this other this Indian that's maybe a Hindu, or you're saying that they're 2/3 of a human being, okay? Well, wait a minute. Then you're not a Christian.
You're not.
You're not a Christian, because if you were truly a Christian, you would realize two things. Number one, God made us all.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, God gave us free will.
Yeah.
When God gives us free will, that means He gives us the choice of whether we want to believe in Him or whatever we want to believe in. Okay? And it's not up to you to bully me, or you're allowed to have it. He gave you that free will. And the fact that you're using your religion to bully someone else into, being a Jew or being a Muslim or being a Christian or whatever means that you're not getting it, man.
It means you're completely full of shit.
You're
You know
full of
what?
shit.
Okay, you know what? I, Matt Weiss, will declare what Christianity is really supposed to be. You know what it is?
But
Christianity, according to Jesus Christ himself, in very specific terms, declared what Christianity is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, number one, love for God in every way you can. Number two, love for your fellow human being. And then he went farther and he said, you know what? Everything else doesn't matter if you don't have these two things. And whenever I get in an argument with a Christian, I'll say, I'll show you the Bible's verse that says exactly that.
And you want to know something
In
else?
those exact terms.
When
So
I
if
was
you're not
studying-
doing this, you're not a Christian. You're
when I
just
was
full of
studying
shit.
religion in college, that was one of my electives, like all 4 years for my bachelor's degree, because it interested me so much. Is that what totally amazed me was when the light went off. I was in my early 20s, and I found out that the Torah and the Quran and the Old Testament were almost word for word the same, translated into English. They start with Genesis. They all have the 10 Commandments. Many of the books are the same, a little bit written differently and everything, probably because of how they were translated through thousands of years and everything, different languages and everything.
Right. Whether it's coming from Hebrew, Latin, or Persian.
Aramaic,
Right.
But it just.
Is there an Aramaic version of the Old Testament?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Greek too. Totally amazed me.
Right.
And I because now you've got these, and you all up until till they had the Gutenberg Bible and and Martin Luther and everything. The only people that were allowed to read the Bible was all in Latin, and the only people that were allowed to read it were the priests.
You know what I heard?
What's that?
I heard there was a time in Catholicism when even the priests weren't allowed to read the Bible.
Wow.
It was only like the upper echelon of the monks.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So they were all spewing bullshit. It was all layers and layers and layers upon stuff that had gotten so far off the field that it was all basically crap.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting little fact. Did you know that up until a certain point, that priests, sometime in the Middle Ages, is when they stopped allowing priests to marry? Do you know why that was?
Some crazy monastery decided that, and I hope you know. Of course, the Catholic Church went that way, but the Orthodox Church completely rejects that. In fact, the Orthodox Church says, if you're not married, you can't be a priest because you don't know shit about families, and you're supposed to be the one who's giving them advice.
Amen.
And if an Orthodox priest gets divorced, he gets fired, and he's no longer a priest.
Wow. Well, I know as far as the Roman Catholics are concerned, they stopped allowing priests to marry because, if you were a shoemaker, you're a shoemaker.
Shoemaker, yeah.
You're what was it for barrel maker? What was the last name?
Let's call it a barrelmacher.
No, I'm trying to think of what it was. But anyway, I'm just saying whatever your father did is usually what the child would follow in his footsteps. And if your father was a priest, you usually would become a priest too. Well, what happened is there was a cooper was a barrel maker, cooper. But there's a certain point in time in the Middle Ages where the sons didn't want. I don't want to be a priest. Okay, so the Roman Catholic Church would give the priest a parcel of land on a house. Okay. And he would pass that down to his son when he retired. Well, the problem was the son didn't want to be a priest, so the Catholic Church is losing land because he passes down to his son, and his son's not a priest. So now they have to give another parcel of land to another priest. So that's the only reason they stopped marriage.
Oh.
Can you believe that?
Actually, I can.
Wow.
Knowing all the other kind of stuff that goes on in
Money, money,
humanity.
money, money, money.
And I could see how they could think it through and they could figure out a way to say that, well, this kind of makes sense. If you want Christianity to flourish, I see how you could rationalize that.
So I went into
But
my priest when I was about 14 or 15, and
okay,
I said, Father, I said, Jesus was from the Middle East. And he says, yes, yes, my son, I says, well, I said, you have, depictions of him out here. He's got blue eyes and sandy brown hair and, a straight nose. And, I said, if he's from the Middle East, didn't he probably have darker hair and maybe darker skin, maybe a crook in his nose and maybe kind of kinky black hair? And he got all upset and he called my parents and said I was a troublemaker.
yeah,
And then the nuns swatted me once, and
yeah,
called my parents and everything. I stopped being a Catholic lickety split.
yeah. You know what I say to this?
What's that?
I say all that. I even go this far. I say the sum total of all church doctrine, all of it, is nothing more than a golden calf.
About it.
And it's exactly right, because what it is, they can't understand who God is, right? So they have to fashion their golden calf of all these other things that they use as a replacement for God, and then they worship that instead.
That's exactly right. And what about all
It's
these
a very
people?
powerful analogy.
What about all these people that constantly are saying, if there's a God, why do we have war? Why do we have, why doesn't God stop this person from mass murdering these children and everything?
Mm.
Because God gave us free will. God is not, what kind of God allows this stuff to happen? God had nothing to do with this. It's the evil in mankind. You have a choice, whether you're mentally ill or you made a choice to get an AR-15 and start taking people out,
Right.
or to rape some child or to murder someone or whatever. This is a choice that you made, whether you're mentally ill or not. Okay?
Right. And even if you do believe in miracles and some form of divine intervention, I would say if a miracle happens and there is something that's like divine intervention, the reason why it happened is because so many human beings requested it and willed it to happen. They called upon God so powerfully that God, which is basically awareness, silence, and love, manifested this thing. But it was really, the thing that really did it was the peoples who asked for it were the ones who actually caused it to happen. They were the ones who requested it. And that's why it manifested.
I never, ever, when I see these old period movies and I see these fire and brimstone preachers and things like that, I never, ever in my life have thought about a vengeful God, a fire and brimstone God. To me, God is nothing but pure love.
Yeah.
In my eyes. And I'm going to tell you something. After all I've been through in my life, I have been, how many times have I almost died? I used to be a mountain climber because I came from Austria. So I was in 3 bad mountain climbing accidents where I almost died. I fell 50 feet one time, almost broke my back when
Wow.
my dad caught me on the rope. But we're on a 500-foot cliff, and he caught me because he was doing the lead climber. But I fell 50 feet before it caught me and almost snapped my spine.
Okay.
And three bad auto accidents. I was shot, got a bullet hole in my calf. Okay, I was knifed. I almost died from my kidney radio. I have a big scar in back here where I got knifed.
Wow.
And I was poisoned once, and
Intentionally?
it was accidentally. I was in an Arby's, and they after a band practice once back in the early 80s, and we went to Arby's afterwards, and I used to always order my coffee and then put my sweet and low in it, and then put the lid back on so it was cool enough to drink by the time I'm done eating my burger or whatever. And so I took the lid off of it and drank half the cup down because it was cool enough. And about 2 minutes later, what had happened is they gave me a cup of lye.
Oh shit!
It looked black, just like the coffee, the stuff they clean the urns with.
Oh my God!
There was a switching of the shifts, and they forgot to empty the urn out, and it looked just like black coffee in the urn. They gave me a cup of that.
And you just gulped it down without
I gulped it down, and that's one of the things that screwed up my vocal cords.
Huh. Did you immediately barf it up?
No, but I passed out, and they had to have a fire. I was in the hospital and everything.
Wow.
They had to have and then I when I first came to this country, and we were mountain climbing, and we didn't have poisonous snakes in Austria, okay? And I was up in the Appalachians, and I had shorts on and a pair of rubber flip-flops when I got bitten by a copperhead 50 miles up in the mountains, right on my foot. And they picked me up and took me back to the camp. And my dad's got a big Bowie knife like this, and there's 4 grown men holding me down, and he's trying to cut it open so they could suck the blood out on my foot. I still have the 2 little X's on my toe. And then they had to drive me 50. They're punching me in the jaw, trying to knock me out. And they had to drive me like 50 miles along dirt roads up in the hills to find not a hospital, to find a little medical center. And the doctor said I was within an hour of death.
Now, a copperhead, is that a certain type of rattlesnake, or is that something else?
It's a poisonous snake. But it's not the same kind of viper that a rattlesnake is.
Okay.
They have more of a rounded head.
Okay.
Vipers usually have kind of a triangular shaped head.
Okay.
But anyway,
well, luckily you didn't have to get your leg amputated.
Yeah, and I was my foot, which is about this wide.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever see Tweety Bird?
Uh-huh.
Got the big feet. My foot swelled up to this wide.
Right.
All right, and from the poison and everything. And they had a great big bird cage, that was shaped like this.
Uh-huh.
That was like a metal bird cage that was all sanitary and everything.
Right.
And they didn't even want a sheet to touch my foot for bacteria and stuff. So they put my foot inside this bird cage in the bed, and like on a little pillow for my heel,
Uh-huh.
And they put a sanitary sheet over the top of it to keep any bacteria or anything from getting to my foot.
Uh-huh.
It took a couple of days for the swelling to go down, and I was feeling all sorry for myself and everything. And I'm in a room with I think there was like 12 other youngsters in the room with me in this community, because it's an Appalachian medical center. Okay. And they bring in this one kid whose whole face was burned off. Okay.
Wow.
And just looks like meat, man. Just looked like hamburger. Okay. And we were all in there joking. I'm feeling all sorry for myself and everything. And then this kid comes in, and we're all joking around and everything like that. And I got a lesson in humility.
Yeah.
At a young age, I got a lesson in humility, and a lesson in personal strength.
Yeah.
And fortitude, and being, what's the word when you say don't feel sorry for yourself? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Bouncing back.
What's the word when you empathy? I had an incredible lesson in empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since that time, my entire life, when I start feeling sorry for myself about something, I say, man, someone's hurting worse than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell myself that. And then I'm okay.
Yeah.
That's it. And you can take that to the umpteenth degree, because you can say, I remember an old man telling me one time, I used to visit these old men in the old folks home with my dog Lady when I was in my early 20s.
Hmm.
And there was this guy named Old Bill, and he was always crotchety and in pain, but he loved my golden retriever Lady, and I used to love to go see him. And I would, he would be a little less crotchety when Lady was around, And anyway, I asked him some question one time about getting older and everything. Or I said, why are you so crotchety or something like, I don't know. But anyway, some stupid thing that young people say to old people.
Yeah.
And and he said something to me that he said, you know, something about I might be crotchety and everything like that, but he goes, when it really comes down to it, it feels a whole lot better. It feels a whole lot better breathing 6 feet above the ground than feeling nothing 6 feet under. So he says, that's what I have to tell myself sometimes as I get older. I never forgot that. And then when I
Yeah.
was about 40, I saw a tombstone, and I think it was in a National Geographic. They were doing like a story about all these different, people go around, make these paper etchings with a pencil of these tombstones.
Yep. Yep.
And on this tombstone, it said, as you are now, so once was I.
Mm.
As I am now, so shall you be. Man, I remember, I think of that every day of my life. And when I think about all the times that I came close to dying, and then this final accident that I was in that crippled me for 2 years, 28 years ago,
Yeah.
and all the virtuosity that I lost, everything that I worked so hard to, and not realizing it at the moment, but as I started dabbling in, I was always a composer, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but not orchestral and stuff. I mean, I had to really ramp it up to get my training up to par for that.
Yeah.
But I started. It took me a couple of years before I said, "Man, a door closed and God opened a window for me." You
Yeah.
know, and then I started looking at everything extremely spiritually, because not religiously, spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Where I said, I'm no Beethoven, I'm no Mozart, but I'm pretty good at what I do. People like my
You're
stuff.
Braden.
They like my music.
Yep.
It's melodic, blah, 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 blah.
Also very well orchestrated.
And I say to myself, you know, this is your gift. If I don't work hard at this gift, it's like thumbing in my nose at God.
Exactly. This is your calling.
That's right.
This is what we were born to do.
And I'm
Yeah.
doing it for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm busy at a time in my life when people are starting to slow down.
But you said you were 68, right?
Yeah, I'll be 69 in like 2.5 months.
But you're going full blast.
Yeah, man.
It's not like you're retired.
and I have a
No.
feeling that's going to get busier and busier over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Well, it's exciting. I mean, you have a purpose.
Yeah, I have a purpose.
It energizes you.
It does. It energizes me, but it also makes me feel like I quit composing for about 6 or 7 years because I quit a $150,000 a year job working as a music director at a resort to move back up here and buy this house that I'm living in that has a beautiful apartment above the garage to care for my sainted mother that had ovarian cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She moved. My brother lives about 15 minutes from me, and he moved her into the apartment 6 months before I came back from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I cared for her for 9 years.
Okay.
Right? And I didn't get to work on very much music because I was spending 5 to 8 hours a day caring for my mom, plus building my music shop, sound business again, I was doing some piano composing and stuff like that, but I really didn't have time to work on orchestral composing because it's a lot more involved.
Mm-hmm.
And when my mom finally passed away in November 2016, and by the way, the reason I came back up here is because uh, I don't make it sound hokey or anything like that, but in the quiet, whenever I want to hear God or whatever he or she is talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
I find calm. I go in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I find a calm place away from the noise of the city, away from people yelling and screaming and blah, blah, car horns and everything like that. And I open a channel. I open my heart, and then
Mm-hmm.
I don't know so much that it's like really words, but you feel these something in your heart or exist.
The presence.
That's right. And God said to me, go back to Ohio and care for your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your brother's married and has two sons. Your sister lives out in California, your younger sister in Los Angeles, and your older sister passed away of cancer in 2000. So you're it.
You know
You
what
go-
I'm going to declare?
that-
That same voice that told you to go back to Ohio is the same voice that says, hey, why don't you try this melody? Or why don't you try harmonizing it like that?
That's right.
That's the exact same voice.
That's right. And that voice, there was times when I sat at my piano in there, which is in this living room here. I bought my grand piano in 2002, my Weber grand piano.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat at that piano sometimes and fell asleep at that piano with a pencil in my hand, sleeping over the piano like this. Woke up the next day, looked at 5 or 6 pages of music written there, wiped the sleepies from my eyes, didn't even recognize it. I said, I don't even remember writing this because it wasn't really me that was writing it.
It was the
Because
spirit.
that's right.
Yeah.
Something was guiding my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
The crazy thing
if
is,
you have
on
to
one
work
hand,
too hard at something, you're forcing it.
yeah, but the crazy thing is, I'm going to declare this. On one hand, it wasn't you, it was the spirit, right? But on another hand, at the most deep level, it was you, because on the deep level, you are one with the spirit.
That's right. It's the consciousness. I mean,
Yeah.
when you see these movies that where you see people walking on clouds in white robes and everything, and that's heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's what heaven is. I think heaven energy never dies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There probably is some kind of heavenly realms like that, but
Yeah.
the thing
yeah,
is,
I
when
think
you're,
I think we the consciousness level after we die.
yeah,
I don't think we're really physical anymore. We just imagine that we see the physical.
yeah,
Because
but here's my point. Who cares? You know, when you're in the space of consciousness and truly inspired, all you have to do is look around and you're like, well, I already am in heaven. Everything around here is so amazing and so fascinating. I mean, I don't need to go somewhere else. It's right around me. There's a miracle happening right at this instant all around me. This whole thing is a miracle. So who cares if I go to heaven
that's
or
one of the
not?
reasons I don't fear death either.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to die on a train track and see half of my body sitting 4 feet away from me as I'm bleeding out.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. Okay.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I really don't fear death. Like I
Yeah.
did younger.
I think, though, I thought that too, but then I did have a few experiences where I truly thought I was dying when I was half asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment when I was confronted with this insane, visceral fear. So I think there is a very deep-rooted fear of death that's basically built into our DNA
Mm-hmm.
that you have to deal with at the moment of your death. And then I would say that you pass through that fear, but it does come up.
I think with
Yeah.
me, I think it's more instead of a fear of death, I think it's more of a fear of not. Um, um, oh God, what's the English word, damn it? Um,
Existing?
no, of creating something, of doing something of merit,
Oh.
with the time that you have. I
Uh,
mean,
a wasting?
huh?
Waste? A fear of wasting your time or something? Or
Look, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not wagging my tongue or anything, but I'm just saying people that come home from work and watch 2 hours of The Bachelor on TV, or they play video games for 4 hours, violent video games and stuff,
yeah.
instead of taking their wife for a walk, and
Yeah.
and or they'll some guy will wax his car for 4 hours on a nice summer day instead of to take his wife out for a picnic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You reap what you sow in life. You know what I
Right. Of
mean?
course, on the waxing the car thing, if that's his meditation and his spirituality and there's something
That's
more
a good
to
point.
it,
That's a good
then
point. That's a good point.
you can't knock it.
Oh, I never thought of that. That's a good
yeah.
point. That's a darn good point.
Yeah.
But accomplish, that's the word I'm trying to think of.
Yeah.
Accomplish. I want to feel like every time, when I see some of these amazing people, when they pass away, like when Einstein passed away, Mozart passed away, and Beethoven passed away. Uh, you know, it's just, I mean, I can just go, come on, millions and millions of people. If I knew that many, I can just go on and on and on since the beginning of recorded history. An entire library, guys, with them, entire library of knowledge, not just their human existence, not just their flesh and blood and bones, but this entire library of consciousness goes with them. So it's important that any gift that you have, I don't care if you're a great composer or a great filmmaker, maybe you make the best handmade wooden rocking chairs that there are to make.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Whatever you're doing, leave behind a legacy
Mm-hmm.
of a life well lived that
Mm-hmm.
can be shared, where when you're gone, people can say, man, that guy made really great rocking chairs, man. He was one hell of an artist. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's better to give than to receive.
That's right.
So
You
give.
you did something that had nothing with war, that had nothing with greed, that
Mm-hmm.
had nothing with being evil or hateful to people and everything. You lived a life that um, where
Contributed.
your life was like balloons that were lifting up the existence of mankind instead of anchors that were weighing it down.
Yeah. That's great.
That's what I started thinking about when I
yeah.
started realizing that I was okay at composing.
Yeah. Well, you should get the word out. I mean, now also, I think your calling is to let this be known to the people that you come in contact with and encourage them to find their, whatever their calling is.
I always try when I talk to people. I tell them
There's no time like the present. Get off your ass and start doing
there's
it.
there's
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with capitalism
Mm-hmm.
in and of itself to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
But I always tell people all the time, if you're going all over the roads in Austria and Germany and many other countries and cities around Europe, there's no billboards. Here you've got all these ugly billboards everywhere. Everything's about the dollar, making the Benjamins and
Mm-hmm.
everything. You drive through the country in Austria and Germany or riding your bicycle or something, there's none of these big ugly billboards and everything like that. But everybody still makes a living. What's up with that? You know? So I tell people all the time, say someone's going to go to college, or some people aren't made for college, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and you know, maybe you should be a plumber. You'll
Yeah.
make $80,000 or $90,000 a year You'll have control over your life. No one will be looking over your shoulder. You might find out that you're good at it. Maybe you'll be an electrician. Maybe you'll be an HVAC repairman. You
Mm-hmm.
know, or maybe you're really good at baking or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you only make $30,000 a year as a baker. Okay, but what about your mate? Maybe your mate is also making $30,000 or $40,000 a year. If you two can't live off $70,000 a year, what's something wrong with you? It's more important to do what you're good at. Because I'm darn tootin' sure that God gives each one of us 3 or 4 different talents.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to us to find out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just going to lay it in your lap. You got to do a little experimentation. Got to put your little elbow grease into it. You know, a little bit of research and everything, and find out what you like. And once you do that, there might be. They say if you really love your work, you don't work a day in your life. You know.
True.
There's some very frustrating times when I'm composing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I'll curse. There's sometimes when I'm working on um, 12 measures for 5 days in a row because I don't like how I'm doing this, the harmony between the instruments or something. 12 measures, 4 or 5 days in a row, I'm working out over and over again. Sometimes I rate 24 measures in 2 days. Okay.
Some
So
days you'll slam something out in an hour.
that's right. That's
Yep.
right. So I'm just saying that there's frustration, but there's never any hatred or anything for it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
hate composing, and there's always a feeling of accomplishment, and also when I finish something, I listen to it once all the way through when I'm finished. You know, you get to the end of that piece. I play it back. I listen to it once, and then I leave it alone for 2 weeks. I don't come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's smart.
I come
Yeah.
back to it 2 weeks later, and one of two things is going to happen. Maybe both. I'm either going to have a tear in my eye. Did I make that? You know, did I do that? Remember, what was it? The weird little nerdy guy. Did I do that? There's going to be a tear in my eye. I remember when I first heard, I was on Skype in rehearsal listening to my Requiem for Lost Loves that I composed after my mom passed away, and you know, and I lost my favorite dog, and one of my best friends died, and 2 other family members all within 6 months.
Wow.
And I was devastated, you know. And I wrote my Requiem for Lost Loves, and I'm watching with the conductor with the orchestra as they're in rehearsal, and they start playing, and God, I just broke out in tears. I saw my mom sitting next to me, you know, listening to me saying, "Thank you, son," you know.
Wow.
And so that's what happens. So it'll be either that I'll break into tears, or I'll say this needs to be changed or something like that, you know,
Right.
because I do what my writing professor taught me: keep moving. And but I usually do that. Sometimes I'll go back and I won't go forward to another section until I get the section a little bit better. But I still might come back and do things later again too. But
Right.
my God, do you realize how incredible that is? What we do when we're bringing together all these human beings,
Yeah.
playing these organic instruments made out of wood and metal
I know.
and stuff, and they're playing together. They're playing these notes together, and they're playing this incredible music that's filling the air. And as soon as they stop playing, it's gone.
Yeah.
And they start playing again. I see it through the eyes of a child.
Yeah.
So
Well, there you go.
we're so lucky, man.
Well, there we go. This is why Christianity is so great. There's so much good stuff in it. Well, Jesus says, well, you have to become like a child and you have to become reborn again in the spirit. Well, that's it right there, what you just described. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I always try to do. I try not to ever lose that. I pay my bills on time,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm responsible. I fix the hole in the roof when it needs to be fixed, and
Mm-hmm.
and I do all the adult things that I need to do to call myself a good, responsible adult. But every time those responsibilities are taken care of, I return to being a child.
Mm-hmm. And the sense of amazement.
And see all this childish and amazement that's all around you, behind you.
Yeah.
That's in you too.
Yep. Yeah.
I see how much fun you're having when you make these. When I watch these episodes that you make.
Yeah, the Star Trek. Yeah, it's really fun.
And you're good at it too.
And it's a huge amount of work.
Sure it is.
Like episode 4 that I did took me a year and a half to do it.
When I make my videos, I use free source OpenShot,
Yeah.
to make and I use Handbrake to compress my videos, and I use another free, and that's free, and I use another program called ePaint.
Yeah.
So it's a photo editing program.
Yeah.
That's what I make my title and credit pages with and everything.
Yeah.
And
I use GIMP, actually.
It's a lot of work. I heard about that.
Yeah. It's a free one. It's pretty much like the sort of a free version of a crowdsourced and crowd developed version of Photoshop.
Does it come with text and everything?
Yeah, you can use tech. You can.
The one thing I think I checked out GIMP, and I think the reason I went with ePaint is that because it comes with like a couple hundred different fonts. Right?
GIMP, you can import any font you want into GIMP.
I know, but you don't even have to do that with ePaint. It comes with like about 200 or 300 fonts. Right?
Okay.
Right.
Well, GIMP. No, what GIMP does is it pretty much makes available whatever fonts are in Windows. So whatever you put in your Windows fonts will show up in GIMP.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I had to download the Star Trek fonts I needed, but then once I put them in the fonts folder in Windows, then GIMP could use it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was watching some of your videos trying to figure out how the hell did he do this? Because it looked like the series.
Yeah, it was. That's part of the fun of it, is how to make it look as real as it does when it's all basically actors on green screens getting superimposed over pre-existing clips. But you have to get the lighting right.
Green screen too?
Yeah, it's all green screen. The entire show is used on a green screen. Yeah.
Okay. Now I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can.
But you have to do it well to make it look good, and that's the trick. You got to do the lighting right, and you have to stage it right. And there's a lot of things. Well, that's why it's filmmaking is an art form. The thing that makes good films look good. There's so much that happens in the cinematography that has to be done in an artful way to create that effect.
Who was it Captain Pike before?
Yeah.
The one that was injured in the old Starship, ended up in a wheelchair.
Yeah, but believe you know what?
What?
I know that actor. And we are right now scheming to have him play in the next episode of my show, to play Captain Pike. Yeah.
How old is he now? He's got to be in his 80s.
He's 80, but he looks like he's 59.
Really?
Of course, he colors his hair, but still, he looks and acts way younger than his years.
I do. My hair's totally gray on the side. About every 6 weeks, I do the sides blonde again.
Yeah, so I color my hair too. If I didn't color my hair, I would be as gray as this beard right here.
I still look 15, 20 years younger than all the people I went to high school with.
Yeah.
I think that's, and I'm always joking my friends all the time, and I can eat hot peppers right before I go to sleep, and
I haven't tried that one.
and
before going to bed? Why do you do that?
Because I have cast iron stomach. But my friends say, how can you do all that? I said, well, because I don't smoke, I don't drink. And I said, and I never got married and had a bunch of teenage kids beating me down. And I've always been my own boss all my own life.
So you led the life of a priest.
Well, I wouldn't say that. But,
well, who knows? I heard that
but
those priests.
I do joke
actually, I heard those priests. A lot of them do a lot of things on the side.
Oh my God!
Besides being a priest.
My mom used to tell me stories even before I went to college. She used to tell me stories of the priests and monasteries in Europe, how they had tunnels that went from the rectory to the nunnery underneath the tunnels, underneath the ground, and that the priests would crawl through those tunnels to visit the nuns at night. Come on, man, and I believe it too.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, yeah.
I just don't think it's natural,
It's not.
No.
And of course, I mean, if you try
to
force
something, I really
something,
don't care anymore. But I'm just saying, when I was younger, that
Yeah. Well, if you force things, it's gonna. If you force something into a box, it's just gonna seep out the edges, anyways.
How is a priest gonna give someone marital advice?
Exactly.
To a married couple that might be having intimacy problems or something like that,
or even any kind of problems that married people have.
Any kind of problems. You're absolutely right, because they don't know anything about how.
Like, what does a priest know about doing the dishes?
Yep.
Unless they actually do dishes at their apartment.
My dad was an agnostic, and but he used to always tell me all the time that, he said, if I was some religion, I'd be Catholic, because those priests, they like to drink their whiskey, because my dad died of alcoholism. But, he was, Freud says there are no jokes. He was kind of being serious.
Yeah.
So.
Well, surprisingly, despite my so-called enlightenment, within the past few years, I've developed a taste for whiskey, and I actually love the taste of it. And I will sip a shot of whiskey, at the end of the day.
I love
for the taste of it, not to get drunk, but I just love the taste.
Man, I like bourbon. I like bourbon.
Same thing. Yeah.
I like to sit once or twice a month in the backyard in the warm weather. I'll smoke a cigar. I don't inhale it. Mm-hmm. But I have a beautiful backyard, and I'll sit. I think I saw some pictures of your yard, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah, our backyard is really nice. And we've also put a lot of work into it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like the Garden of Eden to me. It looked gorgeous.
It is. We're really lucky to have this house. I mean, when we bought this house, the backyard was already in really nice shape. And then I thought that I was like, oh my God, how am I going to maintain this? It's going to go downhill once we buy it. But actually, surprisingly, it's actually improved. So we just sort of learned by doing, and I've actually added a lot to it. Like the whole grape arbor that we have in the back, I added. And our grapevines are all, we grew them.
What kind of grapes are there? What kind of grapes are they?
I've got Concord grapes. And I now have Concord grape Tranya for the first time. Also some.
What is Tranya? What is that?
Tranya is a made-up Star Trek term from this one episode. Okay. Where right at the end. Have you seen all the Star Trek episodes?
I don't think I've seen all of them. No.
Well, there's one at the end where this mean-looking alien. In the end, it turned out to be a ruse, and it was just like this puppet. And really, behind the scenes, it was just this little kid. And he takes, I think it's Spock and Captain Kirk, and he says, "Come, before we talk, let us drink Tranya." And so they have
remember that. Okay, I remember hearing. Okay, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so a friend of mine suggested I call it Tranya, and I'm like, that's good, because then. If it doesn't actually taste like wine, I'll just say, well, it's supposed to be like that. It's Tranya, because it's my first try at homemade wine.
Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter if it comes out like wine. If it comes out like vinegar, it doesn't matter. You're still going to be able to use it for cooking or something.
It doesn't taste like what it tastes like. is a combination of wine and Concord grape kombucha.
And what is kombucha now? What is that?
Kombucha is a fermented tea. Or if you don't know what kombucha is, then think of it, it's sort of like a sweet grape flavored beer. Because it's got alcohol in it, but it's also got a fizz and it's got a sweetness to it still because it didn't fully ferment.
You know, I'm Austrian. I love beer. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I love beer. As a matter of fact, I could have been drinking one while I was right here, but there you go.
The reason I was in Frankenmuth, Michigan, which is a German town of, like, I don't know if I told you, I'm a descendant of a bunch of German Lutheran dairy farmers. Did I tell you that?
No.
Who all lived in Frankenmuth, Michigan. They left Germany in the 1850s because they were Lutherans and were getting persecuted by the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
and
there was a lot of crap going on there in the 1850s. Yeah.
Yeah, so they showed up in Michigan and bought farmland for like $1.50 an acre, and then passed it down through the family ever since.
Wow.
Anyways, I was there and I found this beer, and it says, for one thing, it says Erdinger.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, that sounds like Hardinger, who's Captain Hardinger in my show. So I got to get this Erdinger beer, and then I saw that it says it's Weissbier, which apparently is like a wheat beer. But I'm okay. I got to get this Erdinger Weissbier.
Did you drink it?
Yeah, I'm not
Was it
really a
good?
beer drinker.
No.
But I drank the whole thing and I liked it. But I for sure had to keep the bottle. I've got Erdinger Weissbier. You know.
I mean,
over here right now.
don't get me wrong, but I can't think of very many sandwiches that don't taste better with the beer.
Yeah. Well, my whole family drinks beer, so it's a little bit strange that me as a vice isn't really a beer drinker. But like I said, surprisingly, I'm really into hard liquor. And I drink it straight. I don't put it on ice or anything. I just drink it, a straight shot of it. I just sip it. Whiskey, rum, bourbon, any of that stuff I really like.
That's how I drink most drinks, because we don't use a lot of ice in Europe, on our drinks and everything, even sodas and things like that. I don't really like room temperature beer. I do like it cool, but sodas and room temperature water and things like that, wine, room temperature wine is good, and bourbon, and
I also drink tons of this stuff now.
What is that?
La Croix, which is basically bubbly water with a very slight flavoring to it, and absolutely no sugar, no sweetener.
There's a lot of snow on the ground. We just got a heavy dumping of snow.
Oh, really?
You know what? I'm thinking that maybe when I make my dinner tonight, I might make myself an Irish coffee.
There you go. Okay, we got to end this. We're just going on and on. I had one more question I wanted to ask you that I've been asking myself, which is like, okay, the physical world we live in we've proven that it's actually made out of atoms and molecules and subatomic particles and all this really amazing, crazy stuff. So here's my question to you. When we dream at night and we're living in this universe created by our brains, is that universe also created by atoms and molecules and everything? Because it behaves a whole lot like this physical one that we live in.
Yeah, but
how does that work?
I think what I always have this theory though about when we're dreaming, that when they talk about like REM sleep, and you have a dream, and they say you have to be asleep a certain amount of time before you fall into this REM period, and that you need that REM period for your mind to kind of defecate all the BS that you sieve through, all the BS that you in everyday life, and that if you don't do that, you'll go crazy.
Your brain has to somehow
this
decompress.
Is what happens with soldiers when they're on the battlefield and they're awake for 40 hours, and they start getting like nutso crazy because they're not getting that REM sleep.
Basically, your brain says
what's coming out of your bottom, but it's got to come out of your brain somehow.
Well, you know what I say? If they're at that point, their brain says, look, if you're not going to let me dream while I'm asleep, I'm going to dream while I'm awake because I got a dream.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
and they'll just start hallucinating.
so I have this theory that when we're dreaming, when you go to sleep and you wake up and you remember a dream, and I'm sure that you've had dreams that seem like they were lasting for a year.
Uh-huh.
You know, you went through like a year of life, and the whole dream took maybe 5 minutes.
Right.
Okay, so in order for that's the power of your mind. In order for your mind to fit a year of life and stories into 5 minutes of sleep, your mind has to be capable of working at such a fast rate of speed. And then many years ago, I thought about that and I said, this makes perfect sense to me now because now I understand why. Now I understand why God supposedly came to Mary in a dream. Because when you leave this body and you possibly go to this consciousness afterwards, and your
Right.
energy, okay, you're in a totally different plane of existence with this energy, and we can't. You've seen in sci-fi movies and everything where they talk about this other dimension that's moving that exists in the same place, same physical place, but we can't see what's going on because it's moving at a different speed.
Right. Or it's just on a different frequency on the
Different
radio
frequency.
dial.
That's right, exactly. So that's when I started thinking of that years ago, and I think I said that's why God came to Mary in a dream, because even though God is God, uh, there he or she communicates at such an unbelievably fast fast level of speed that we wouldn't perceive it or understand it or anything. But when we're in that REM period when our brain is working that fast. And then I had proof of that, if you want to call it proof, many years later,
Okay.
in the year 2000, when my sister Kathy passed away of cancer. She was diagnosed and died 4 weeks after she was diagnosed.
Wow, that was quick.
She was my best friend, and she was 4 years older than I am. And my younger sister's 4 years younger than I am. My younger brother's 12 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So Kathy was my best buddy, and our entire lives we laughed and played cards and did stuff together. And we always envisioned ourselves as two old gray-haired people playing cards and yakking it up and cackling like a couple old barnyard animals. And you know, and then she was taken from me in
Yeah.
2000. With the iron stomach that I have, I developed an ulcer 2 weeks after she passed away. I was so distraught.
Wow.
I developed a bleeding ulcer.
Wow.
It was the most horrible thing. And I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I mean, it was just horrible, absolutely horrible. And then one evening, I was sleeping, and I had a dream. And I had a dream that I was in my sister's house over here in Ohio with her husband. And whenever I stayed there, I always stayed upstairs in this one room. And there were these closets in this room that had louver doors, you know, and you can swing open like this, you know, with the slats in them.
Yep.
And in this dream, something made me get up out of the bed and go to the two closet doors with the little knobs on them. And I pulled them open. And my sister was in the closet, and she was standing in the closet looking down like this. And Kathy, Kathy, you know, what are you doing in there, you know? And my sister lifts her head up, and she had her eyes closed. and she opened her eyes. And when she opened her eyes, I saw the entire universe in her eyes.
Oh, wow.
It was like dark with all these stars and planets and everything in these two eyes. And she had the most heavenly look on her face. And she looked at me and she smiled and she said to me, Gary, everything's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. 2 weeks later, my ulcer was gone.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So, did she really visit me in my sleep? Did she visit me or did I make it up?
Here's a question for you. This is even more important. Is she with you right now?
With me right now.
Right. My little sister died 10 years ago. And she was in a coma for like a week. And I spent the entire time in the hospital with her because I wanted to be there the very moment she died. And I was. And but ever since then, I've felt that she's always been with me. Like I feel like her presence when all I have to do is think about her and I have a connection to her.
That's how I feel about Kathy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can be sitting on the couch watching a movie and I can talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that, Kathy? Oh, I know you like that. Yeah. You think that's funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I also feel a calling and a duty to carry on some traditions that my sister pretty much did when she was alive. So I feel like even now I'm like channeling her spirit through me, and I'm doing some of the things that she used to do. That now it's up to me to do it. You know, I feel the same way about my dad who died a few years ago too. Like neither of them are gone, and I still feel very connected to them.
My mom died.
Yeah.
In November. It was 6 years when she died. Right here at home, she died.
Yeah.
And she's with me.
Yeah.
She's with me every day. She's with me when I drive in the car, when I go to the store, it's the weirdest feeling. But it's such a comforting feeling. And
yeah.
And I can't physically give her a hug or anything like that, but I know that she's right there.
Yeah, and you can just call them up in an instant. All you have to do is think about them, and then your connection with them is right there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Woo. So before we wrap, my question was this. I was really just talking about the mechanics of dreaming. Like, I mean, how does our brain create this universe? It's got to have, I mean, if it's going to be a convincing, let's say, simulation of the universe that we're living in during our dream, and I've had some dreams that are super vivid, where everything is crystal clear and everything's working exactly as you expect. Well, how did our brain do that? Did it have to actually create dream atoms and molecules and all the laws of physics and everything and make sure they all work right?
This is why
it work this good?
This is why you need to see, when you get a chance, get a big bowl of popcorn, a couple of sodas, and watch the movie Lucy.
Lucy.
With Scarlett Johansson.
Okay.
It's this woman that she takes this drug. They say that we only use 10% of our brain.
Well, more like 1/10%.
Yeah, 10% if you're high, like if you're Einstein or something like, okay?
Okay.
So yes, exactly. You're exactly right. So because of this drug, her mind keeps growing and growing until she is able to use 12%, 20%, 30%. And you watch what happens. And I'm not going to tell you how it ends or anything, but
okay.
But it's I think you'll enjoy the movie. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Lucy, like Linus and Lucy from Peanuts.
Yep.
Lucy. Okay, I'll remember that. All right, sir, we got to wrap it up. So
this was fun, man.
Yeah, it was really good. It's really good to get to know you.
Because I'm a big ass nerd.
Well, now of course we're gonna have to figure some schemes like how to promote your music more, or somehow get it into my Star Trek show, or get my orchestra to play some of it, or now of course
That would be
A
nice.
whole world of possibilities is opening up in front of our eyes.
I'm hoping this orchestra near Dayton. It's not the Dayton Philharmonic, but
Yeah.
2/3 of the players. It's a community orchestra, but 2/3 of the musicians play with the Dayton Philharmonic.
Great.
So I'm hoping that this might be, a little opening for U.S. orchestras are not as willing to take a chance on art as European orchestras are.
Yeah, they're weird. It's really hard to get them to commit to stuff, and when you do, it's really hard to get them to do very many rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been super successful where I might get a pretty mediocre live performance of my piece, but then I can go and mix it with my note performances and do all kinds of tricks behind the scenes, put a lot of work into that, and then the final end result ends up sounding super good because I get the accuracy of note performer, but then I still get the warmth and humanity of the live performance. And if you learn how to do it well and mix the two together, you can end up with something that sounds really good.
So you actually just will track other parts over top of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
because that's one of the major things. If you listen to back in 20, I had two pieces that I paid for in 2020: the Requiem for Lost Loves and Summer Prelude with the Bratislava Symphony and the Bratislava Orchestra. Well, they were as close as the right size. All my stuff is made for the size of an orchestra that Brahms or Dvorak would use. I call it medium-sized orchestra, which would be 16 first violins, 14 second violins, 12 violas, 10 cellos, 6 or 7 basses. Okay.
Well, you probably know this, but you know all these lush orchestral scores in movies and stuff?
Sure.
Those string sections are like 6 first violins.
Oh yeah. But they double all that stuff.
Right.
And everything.
So they use all kinds of recording techniques to make it sound bigger. Yeah.
But with this orchestra, they had 14 first violins, so they were pretty close, and 6 basses.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when they did my sailing ships in Serbia, they were supposed to have 3 basses. I wanted 4. They were supposed to have 3. I go to hear the live concert. They only had 2 basses. I said, "Hey, man, that's Mozart and Haydn, not me." You know.
It depends on the hall too, because
there's a part where the tube is going boom, 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 and the tuba was sticking out like a sore thumb because there weren't enough basses to mix in with the tuba.
Yeah.
So
that's reality. I mean,
this time when they do the orchestra, when they play they're doing the sailing ships again with Budapest on April 2nd on my birthday, and they're actually giving me a 5th bass.
Good.
So I'm like, they're getting to the point where they're actually giving me what I ask them.
Good. That's great. I mean, that's a high level of achievement for a composer to be at that point where you're getting those kind of forces.
And in Europe though, it'd be nice. I got the Akron Symphony 5-10 minutes away from my house, Canton Symphony 20 minutes to the south, Youngstown Symphony 40 minutes to the east. I mean, these orchestras should all be playing my music, and they're not.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's
I'm like right here,
It's all marketing. Well, the other thing is, like, since you're here and they say, well, this is just a normal Joe human being. He's not Mozart or Bach or Brahms. Those were godlike people that were so much better than us.
A prophet is never recognized in his own backyard.
Right. Exactly.
But that's why I don't write symphonies, though. I decided when I started writing my first symphony, which was supposed to be my symphony in C, I got to 13 minutes in the first movement, and I realized, wait a minute, I'm only halfway done, and I'm 13 minutes in it for the first movement. This piece is going to be an hour long. Nobody today is going to listen to a brand new hour-long piece of music.
Right.
So I remembered it was that became my overture for America, because it ended up being the first movement was 20 minutes long.
Yeah. Well, Bach recycled tons of his stuff.
Really?
fact, I found out there's a Bach cantata where the organ is playing note for note the violin prelude. You know that piece?
Oh, I do that. Mozart did that too.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Beethoven did
recycling
that.
your own stuff is certainly allowed.
Absolutely, sure
Yeah.
stuff.
I
But
actually did that. You know my clarinet concerto that you were talking about?
yeah.
The first movement was originally written as an oboe concerto, and then I rewrote it as a clarinet concerto. But the second movement was actually a symphony that was part of a symphony that I wrote. Then I reworked it as a clarinet concerto, and then the last movement similarly was the scherzo to a symphony that I wrote, and then I just
Well, I'm
completely
telling you
redid it.
that piece should be regular concert repertoire. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it now. I've listened to it now, you know, and I've written it a long time ago now, and I listen to it and I'm like, whoa, this is really good, you know. But then you get into the thing. Well, I mean, I could spend all kinds of energy trying to promote that piece,
Hmm.
or I could spend all kinds of energy writing new pieces.
That's the whole reason that I haven't upgraded my
Yeah,
system, because I could spend all kinds of time messing with computers and VST programs and stuff like that, or I could spend time writing.
yeah,
And I tell people, when they complained about my old Kurzweil samples and everything, I like,
right.
did you listen to the music? Did you
Well,
actually
here's the thing: you hear it as music in your head, but they don't. They just hear these crappy sounds.
But then I go listen to their music, and like that they did on Spitfire or something,
Yeah,
and the sounds are really good, but there's no substance in any of the melodies or harmonies.
right. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
so,
luckily, you got me now lighting a fire under you saying, dude, you got to get Note Performer. It's easy to set up. It'll just read straight off your score and finale, and it'll sound 100 times better. You'll be really happy with how it
but
sounds.
I'm still going to keep using this setup probably till I take a dirt nap
Yeah.
to do my scoring.
Did you say a dirt nap?
Yeah,
I've never heard that term before, but that's good.
I believe it or not, I made that up about 25 years ago, and I'm starting to hear people saying it.
Dirt nap. That's really good.
Dirt nap.
All right, we got to stop. We got to wrap this up. So I'm gonna have you send me all kinds of links to your YouTube channel and to your favorite pieces and anything else you want to promote, and we're gonna put all that stuff down in the description so that people can click on it. Anything like that, and then
There's lots of little pieces that in the. I don't know if I told you this or not, but did I tell you that I had plenty of offers to do film scoring and everything too?
yeah, I think you did.
Well, I had in the past 4 years, Daniel Day-Lewis and Samuel L. Jackson and
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie all wanted me to write music for their movies.
Yes.
And I politely turned them down because I just didn't want to be on someone's clock anymore.
I know. Well, it's a hell of a lot of work. Plus, the deadlines you got to meet are insane.
I was on the clock all my life writing music.
Yeah. Plus, also, you have to kowtow to a director who may not know shit about music, and they may want you to do some really stupid stuff, and you're like, dude.
Yeah, I don't want to do what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So, at this point in our lives, we should write what we want to write.
Yeah.
When we're not writing, you do what the hell you want to do.
You know what I would suggest?
So,
If you, instead of totally shutting them down, just say, oh, well, I have this piece here. I'd be happy to let you use this for a certain fee. And you can use this in your movie if you want for that particular scene. Or how about this?
We did say that, but it has never come about because they said, I was very polite with them. They said, well, what if we use just like some pieces of your music or something? I said that would be fine, but for money, of course.
Yeah.
But when it comes to orchestras, that's for them. That's commercial. But when it comes to orchestras, it's like the conductor in Serbia. He goes, we were talking on Skype, and he was very nervously asking me like, how much I'd expect to, for playing one of my pieces at a concert,
Yeah.
And I said, I want a decent video of the performance, and I want you to promote me as a composer.
Yeah.
all of a sudden he starts grinning because I said, I already had my music career. I said, I'd rather your librarian, your musicians, your heat and your air conditioning and your stage hands. I'd rather everybody else still working for a living because I'm retired now, you know?
Have you considered publishing any of your stuff on IMSLP?
No, I never have yet. All my stuff is, I, I signed a publishing deal for 4 books of my piano music that still hasn't been released yet, but no, I haven't published any of my, there's been guys that have been nipping at my heels,
Hmm.
like 3 different guys that want to publish my orchestral works, and I just don't want to publish it with them because I know they're looking at making money off my stuff, and
Yeah, plus then if they have the rights, then you can't promote it yourself. And to
that's
tell you
right.
the truth, you can promote it way better than they can.
That's right. And
Uh,
and I like what I'm doing right now. I like saying
yeah.
that uh, orchestras giving my scores to orchestras that want to play my music. They give me a video, they give me some promotion. Then I tell them they hand it to another orchestra. Hey, listen to this.
Though
That's
here's the thing, talking about legacy, make sure that when you're taking your dirt nap, somehow it's somewhere where people know where it is and can get access to it. All your music. So it doesn't just all disappear with you.
These are all my copyrights.
Okay, yeah. But I would say it needs to be in electronic form somewhere, easily accessible.
Oh yeah, I have 'em there too, but I have actually folders where all my copyrights are on my computers, and now
Okay.
they're in my NAS drive too. And it says what date it was copyrighted and everything, because copyrights only used to be for 25 years. Now they're for like either 90 or 100 years now.
Oh, I thought it was 75, but
I mean,
whatever.
it could be 75. It's gonna be after I'm gone.
Right.
So that way, my I have a daughter, but I'm just
Oh,
saying.
okay. So maybe your daughter could be the caretaker of it or something.
Yeah, it's going to say I'll say you're going to have to recopyright this before this date, or I have 2 grandsons,
Okay. It's a
and
bit old school, even thinking about copyrights.
yeah,
I mean, these days. So you actually filled out the forms and everything for it?
hmm
Most people just rely on the fact that it says copyright whatever on the score and call it good.
oh no, I have all the copyright numbers and everything for
Okay,
everything.
yeah.
It's right on the wall, written behind me too, the dates that I did them all and everything too. Because my mom I used to not do that except for the commercial things that I do in the recording studio for television, video
Right.
commercials. And my mom used to always get on me about my classical music. And after she passed away, I did what mom told me to. I went back and I copyrighted every one of my pieces within a
Right.
year after she passed away. Cost me a little bit of money, but mom told me to do that, and that's how I honored what she told me.
Well, I'm not Angelina Jolie or any of these big wig Hollywood people, but I will say I'll make a concerted effort to try and figure out how to put some of your music into Egotastic Track Episode 5, which I'm currently working on. I'm sure that I can find some of your music that would fit a certain dramatic moment in the
There's
show.
there are 2 or 3 minute snippets on just about any one of my pieces. I try to make all my pieces between 8 and 13 minutes long, because when I realized that on that writing that first symphony, what got me is I decided to write symphonic poems,
Yeah.
because I thought to myself, my God, Franz Liszt in the 1800s, before he was even an old man, started writing symphonic poems, because even he saw the writing on the wall that symphonies were going to be passe.
Well, Richard Strauss didn't write any symphonies.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's another perfect example.
Neither did Claude Debussy, Maurice Ravel, or
So one of the th-
Rimsky-Korsakov.
one of the things that these orchestras like that I'm finding out is that they can play one of my pieces for 10 minutes.
Hmm.
I mean, in the last concert that they did my winter poem, they did. Schubert's Eighth Symphony. And they did my piece right before Schubert's Eighth Symphony.
Right. That's very, very true. In fact,
I got wonderful applause, man.
Mhm.
You know, it was my piece and Schubert's Symphony for the second half after intermission. The time before that, they did my piece and then Tchaikovsky's First Piano Concerto.
I love that piece.
So what they're finding out now, oh no, I'm saying they did that before the intermission. They did my piece before the intermission. What they're finding out is that my pieces, which is exactly what I planned, they're not too long, they're not too short. They're just enough.
Right.
They're just enough where someone's sitting down and having a little meal and then pushing themselves away from the table, and hopefully doing what they did in Mozart's time, before there was radios and television. People be walking down the street, walk by a butcher's office, and the butcher went to a Mozart concert the night before. He's back to cut meat, and he's humming or whistling and someone walks in and goes, where's that melody? Oh, I heard that in the Mozart concert last night. That's how music got around back then.
Yep.
Because if you can't write a melody that someone can remember the next day after seeing, then I don't think you have a whole lot of chance of getting your stuff played in concert halls.
Yeah.
Just I think. I'm not sure.
Well, it all depends how you market it.
Uh-oh, what?
I pressed a button. Now the Star Trek thing is going crazy. I can't stop it either. If I do, all the lights will turn off. Okay, well, I guess this is how we should end it then.
All right. Night.
The way we got to do live long and prosper. Live long and prosper, my friend.
What does this one mean here?
No, that's a doggy. Wait, can you do this one? Do that one. There we go. May your music spread through the entire cosmos, and the entire galaxy will resonate with the melodies of Gerald Braden for all eternity.
Don't forget the Wilhelm. That way people know I'm German.
Gerald Wilhelm Braden.
That way they know I'm a sauerkraut eater.
All right, sir.
Good night, man. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, it totally has.
You're an awesome dude.
Yeah, and like I said, now we got to figure out how to collaborate and join forces.
Pranakasha Production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta